humble. I want him being like, no, I'm the best. I want a Justin Jefferson. I don't want a Stephon Diggs, but I'll take a Randy Moss. I'll take a little bit of a diva.
He is not a diva. He is somebody who if he plays at Nebraska, they got to give him a different helmet. I hate the helmets, the new helmets that have the weird face masks. So Marty Brown went to Miami yesterday. I'm sure that Miami found some money in the seat cushion of Guadalupe Lopez's house, who was a big booster.
Is that the guy who had didn't they have a big booster that apparently like his company is going through a big fraud scandal right now?
Yeah.
Did they ever figure that out? That story kind of just popped up in October.
There are no rules anymore. There are no rules in society.
And then it just went away.
There are no rules. So Marty Brown went to Miami, still scheduled to visit Nebraska on Thursday and on the docket to go to Cal. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's quite the eclectic
He would go,
mix.
hey, how many guys in the history of the portal would do back-to-back former Carolina Panther head coach visits? Because Matt Rule, of course, in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Ron Rivera is the general manager of Cal football.
He needs to go and visit Stanford then, too. Knock it out. I mean, get Frank Reich there as well. That would be the trifecta.
Captain
Is there
Luck.
any other Carolina Panthers out and about in college football?
If
there would be any other football franchise that would have plenty of former coaches and general managers out and about.
George Seifert, yay or nay with us?
Yeah, he's still with us.
Okay.
I'll
I don't want to
double-check,
make the
Is
mistake
Luke Kuechly
Right.
like an assistant general
Shout out
manager
Billy Ray
yet at
Bates.
Boston College? That's bound to happen.
Yeah, Jimmy. Hey, it's not just 1620 The Zone that has trouble with dead or alive.
Yeah, that
Inside
was
the
tough.
NBA last night had to apologize for killing
I knew
off
he
Billy
was
Ray
still
Bates.
with us. Yeah, he's 85 years young.
Well, I mean that show was on a heater last night because Shaq had to excuse himself. He had a little bit of in-show diarrhea. That's what live TV
Not
is.
of the mouth.
It was so
either,
great.
like the night before.
So scheduled to visit on Thursday in Lincoln. Then go to Cal, but was at Miami. You know, everything is fluid when you're in the portal. But all the things we've discussed about Marty Brown from prep, and he's a great kid, great family, great work ethic, head down, do work. I'm going to fight for carries, but I'm not going to uproot the team.
Yeah.
We got to work on his helmet, though. I hate those helmets. He has the goofy Joe Washington back in the day helmet that looks like it's so tiny, and then it has the wide open face, and it looks like a small face mask. I hate those
Makes
helmets.
me think of Jack Squire stepping in front of him.
But through
Rest
the
in
whole
peace.
conversation, and Sam will join us coming up at the bottom of the hour, and I'm sure he's got a thought or two. It just keeps going back to the debate of the running back at Nebraska that has been so mismanaged, from who the position coach is to who they're recruiting, and the misses that they've had is Marty is not a home run hitter. Emmett Johnson is not a home run hitter. Parker could be that home run hitter, but I think he's brought the doghouse with him. It just, Nebraska has to get better at recruiting running backs that are difference makers instead of part of a room. I mean, this week being NFL draft week, Amir is the last running back to be drafted. Okay, that
is crazy.
That's 10 years. So 10 years ago is the last time Nebraska had a running back drafted. The most recent guy in the backfield that's been drafted was the following year. It was a fullback when Janovich was drafted by Denver. But whether it's Marty Brown, Emmett Johnson, or whatever, and maybe it's Parker, and I think maybe it could be, is Nebraska has been in the wilderness in recruiting and developing running backs and figuring out what exactly they want out of a running back. Or getting a running back that is a big-time difference maker. They don't have to be a first-round draft pick. We haven't had a first overall running back in the NFL draft since Kajana Carter from Penn State. What are we, 30 years?
Yeah.
The number one overall. Now, Barkley is Barkley.
Yeah.
Genty is Genty. Not everybody is built the same. But you're telling me that through the last 10 years, Nebraska hasn't been able to find a guy that if you need something to be housed and hit your head on the goalpost on a handoff, it's going to happen. Nebraska doesn't have that in their backfield right now.
It comes down to, in my opinion, two things. It comes down to offensive line play, and it comes down to winning, right? And I think that those two things are conjoined, because when you look at where the top running backs in the country, that the upper echelon 5-star guys are going. They're going to winning programs, right? And those winning programs have elite offensive lines, right? And have those identities. Look at Alabama, right? We call Alabama running back you or whatever. And, we've seen all of these different running backs come out of there. But also, look at all the offensive linemen that Alabama consistently, year in and year out, are having drafted. Not just drafted, period, drafted in the first round, end of story. It seems like every single season you're having a number one overall, like, first round draft pick coming from Bama. Look at Georgia. Same conversation. They get the top running backs in the country. One guy Nebraska went after, Nate Frazier, ended up going to Georgia. Georgia, once again, has consistently elite offensive line play. And so when I think that, when these running backs are looking around at college teams that they want to play for, number one, they want to win. Number two, they want attention. And number three, they want an offensive line that they know that they can run behind. And so when I think you relate the running back problems and being unable to get these top guys to Nebraska, I think you also have to relate it to the offensive line problems, right? Part of the reason that Wisconsin has been able to get, really good running backs over the last couple of years is because they've been looked at as a place that has high-level offensive linemen come in, and that offensive linemen want to play there as well to be developed. And so I don't think it just comes down to specifically, Nebraska can't convince top running backs to school. I think it also has to do with, the lack. I mean, the last couple of years now, the offensive line has been looked at as a question mark or a weakness. And I think those two definitely are compatible in that.
They did so there is a running back out of California that is a high 4-star, Brian Bonner, no relation to Janarian, who does have Nebraska, I believe, in his last 4. So I think it's Notre Dame. It might be 5. It might be Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame, Washington.
Penn State, Nebraska, UCLA, and Washington, I think, are his final 5. So you talk about offensive linemen. I'm trying to think. Amir and Rex, how many linemen did they run behind that were in the NFL? Spencer Long is 1. Alex Lewis?
Let me look here at the...
Are those the only 2 that would be NFL drafted linemen that were blocking for Burkhead and Amir?
I'm looking right now at the roster to see. So you had Amir who went to the NFL, and then you had, I'm looking at offensive linemen. Yeah, so Spencer Long, Price Givens, and Jeremiah Searles also was there too at the time. And then so those 3, when in Amir's last year, were all blocking, who all went to the NFL in some sort of capacity. So I mean, I think that it kind of comes down to that correlation of, if you're a top running back, I don't think you're going to be looking at a program or a school where it's like, hey, I'm going to have to go and do it all by myself. Right. If I were a running back, I don't want to go into a program and look at a roster and be like, well, they have a question at center and they don't know who's playing guard or they don't know who's playing tackle. I want to go to a program where it's, hey, Tyler Booker is probably going to get drafted in the first round next year. Hey, I'm going to be running behind Evan Neal, who's probably going to be a top 10 pick. Go and look at Ohio State. They have Simmons and Jackson, these last 2 years alone, where it's like, man,
those are 2 dudes in the backfield who I think could make people miss. Like Amir, Amir didn't need a great offensive line. That's what I'm looking for.
Sure.
If you're saying, okay, we're not really great at the offensive line, look at how many mistakes Amir made up for.
Yeah.
Because he was so good.
Sure.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for also top end speed. Like I agree with R on Twitter as he tweeted at me. Emmett Johnson is poised to have a big year this year. But Emmett Johnson probably is not an NFL, hey, I think he'll get drafted running back. But for Nebraska's offense, he's going to be ideal. They're going to utilize his strengths. I think he'll catch a lot of footballs this year out of the backfield. But the problem that limits him is that top end speed. We've seen him be able to get to the next level, but how many times has he pulled away from somebody to hit his head on the goalpost?
But those guys who have top end speed and those guys who can make guys miss in the phone booth and don't necessarily need to have a great offensive line.
See a lot of them at Minnesota.
With Darius Taylor.
At Iowa?
Darius Taylor, yeah. And Iowa's got also another team that has developed some good offensive linemen over the last couple of years, right? I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is Tristan Wirfs, but like those are Iowa developed good offensive lines. You get a guy like Caleb Brown to go there. My point is, I agree with you. You want running backs who don't necessarily need to run behind good offensive lines in order to be good. But what makes you attractive? What makes those top end guys want to come to your school? It's relationships, it's coaching, sure, it can be facilities, but I think a massive part in that is who am I running behind? How many opportunities am I going to get? What is the scheme? How has this team run the football in the past? I think when you look at all of those factors, especially over the last couple of years, Nebraska has been lacking in that regard in terms of having top offensive linemen and top running games and top coaching. And so those are sure.
Reggie Davis, Jesus.
You want a guy who
how was he ever a running back coach at Nebraska?
It's just failure. It just comes down to coaching, not only just from the running back room, from the offensive line room as well. Just period.
You think kids today know who Amir is?
Abdullah?
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I think so. He was a decent name in Detroit too. Like he wasn't like a national, like a top, oh my God, Amir Abdullah's like a top 5 running back in the league.
He's found a home with the Raiders.
Yeah. But I think that when he was in Detroit as well, people knew who he was. He was pretty electric in his first couple of years. And now
together a long career.
He pops up a lot. Like you said, he's found a home with the Raiders. He's playing every year in the NFL. I'm pretty sure he scored a couple touchdowns last season for them. It was a pretty big factor for them down the year.
So the Raiders did.
I only root against him twice a year. All right, Sam McKewon's going to join before the hour is over. This is the last week of spring. Very few media opportunities this spring to watch.
Yeah, so they canceled one, I believe, and then they rescheduled it. I haven't seen an email that they've rescheduled.
I don't think so. Sam will join us here in a little bit on Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, another rough night in part of the Omaha area for storms. There was cauliflower-size hail that hit some of the parts of the metro. So you're waking up this morning, you're like, what did that do to my roof, my siding, or my gutters? Well, before you make an assessment, make a phone call. Get a hold of Moose Roofing. Locally owned, the MVPs of roofing in Omaha, Pat Moose and his entire crew, they are out and about. They are still helping many in the community that a year ago were impacted by the tornadoes. And now that we've had a couple of rounds of storms, there are people that need their roofs repaired or looked at. So schedule an inspection today, and they will come out and they will work with you. First of all, they get to know your needs, what you think may be the reason, or what you would like to have assessed. And then they'll climb up on the roof. They'll look at the roofing, the siding, the gutters. They'll walk you through the plan. And as they get to the finish line, they will help you work with your insurance company so that you can get started on your project. So that when the next storm comes through, you don't have a waterfall inside of your house. That's what Moose Roofing does. They've got a plan top to bottom. They've done over 15,000 roofs since the late 90s from Southwest Iowa all the way to Lincoln. They're here during the storm, before the storm, after the storm. They are the MVPs of roofing in Omaha. It's Moose Roofing. Give Pat and Moose a call. Pat Moose a call today, 402-763-4851, or look them up online at mooseroofing.com. She's got to have a new album coming out shortly.
Yeah. About summer. Yeah. Good summer song.
I need to go to one of her concerts. I need to. I see the videos. They look, the music just sounds incredible.
She's got a great British accent.
You work at a radio station. Might be able to hook you up.
I don't know. I don't think she's on tour, but she got to be coming out. It's been a little bit of a lull. Maybe. Wait a minute. She did she get married?
Did she?
Yeah, may have, or she's engaged, or
I hope not.
Hopefully not in the portal. That would stick with the theme of the.
You know what? This is what I think sports would be better as sports takes over life and politics. If we have more Paul Heymans,
yes,
and we have portal is in the lexicon of everything
we do
about life.
Yeah,
like politics, entertainment. Like you're in the portal.
Life. Yeah.
And it's no longer called divorce. Mm-hmm. You're in the portal.
You're in the portal.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to the grocery store, honey. Where are you going? I'm just gonna enter the portal and go to Target. You know.
Ed sarcastically says, "Oh my God, you're talking about high school football recruiting? What happened to the portal guys?" True. I think more people are interested in portal recruiting than high school recruiting. And I'll give an example and with Creighton. So there's a lot of discussion about Creighton's basketball class they put together in the portal, and
sure,
how Blake Harper is down to his 4 schools in Nebraska. Creighton is one of them. People aren't even talking about Hudson Greer, who is a top 40 player that will join him this fall out of high school. Everybody's talking about the portal.
Yeah.
So I get it. Sarcastically, we're going to dabble with a little high school recruiting here, because this is a question in the Equitable Bank inbox from Zach. To get a home run hitter, is it a matter of having an ace recruiter? Feels like we're always so close to getting a top guy and never hit. So let's go back to Brian Bonner. He is in the class of 26. He's from Valencia, California. He's a 4-star running back. Washington, UCLA, Notre Dame, Penn State, Nebraska are his final 5. Now, one school that everybody thought was one of the front runners did not make his final 5, and that's Michigan. Michigan, of course, has a nice little history going of running backs, and even more recent from the Blake Corums on down.
Yes.
But what Zach asks, this is a prime example, because Nebraska has gotten him twice on campus. They would love to get an official visit.
Yeah.
He was here on an unofficial for the UCLA game last November. But then he was here during the summer. And they would like to get him back on an official. I've heard some of our recruiting guys, from Shafe to Tim, say it might be unlikely that Nebraska gets a visit. So why aren't they going to get a visit? Is it because of the history? Is it because of close to home? Is it because of who's recruiting him?
Sure.
Because E.J. Barthel, because it's his position, is recruiting him. But Matt Rule also is involved in this recruitment. So I think Zach's question is valid about what has prevented Nebraska from getting running backs, because let's even go back further.
Yeah.
Like Amir, there were thoughts he was going to be a defensive back at Nebraska. Nebraska kind of got lucky, is that they stuck with him at running back, and he did running back things. So it's been a decade of the right guy, the right recruiter, the right system, the right offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a culmination of things that we have these discussions about. Well, Emmett is good, but he's great for Nebraska, but how many other programs in the Big Ten would he walk in the door and start for?
Well, that's a great question. And I mean, start for, be the number one guy. I mean, it would maybe be half to maybe even a little bit less
probably
than
at least,
half.
Probably minimum 5.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Now, in terms of get carries, I think he would, outside of Penn State, would definitely get carries like at every single Big Ten school. I don't think there's a doubt in that regard.
And they're loaded, and they have there aren't many college football programs where you know who the running back coach is.
Yeah,
we know who the running back coach at Penn State is. It's Stan Drayton.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. It's like when you build a pipeline like that, like you also, not a lot of people know just across the country, period, end of story, who the wide receiver coach was at Ohio State, right? Hartline's over there. Like now he's the offensive coordinator. But let's go to Bonner specifically, right? What is the reason, right? Maybe what is the reason they're not able to get an official visit? Well, the first thing you said is, well, maybe it's geography. Well, he's visiting places like Notre Dame and Penn State that are very high up on his list.
Don't know that they aren't going to get an official, but it sounds like they may not. Not anything official.
Penn State and Notre Dame won't get official visits either, or are you talking about Nebraska? Nebraska, yeah. But I'm just saying, geography, definitely not a factor in that regard because he's looking at East Coast schools at this point, right? But then you have to add in is like, look at Notre Dame, look at Penn State, right? And the winning that they've done and the players that they've been produced over the last couple of years. But I want to go back to Dylan Raiola's recruitment and then them getting Dylan, right? Now I know that it wasn't just all about what I'm going to say, but a big part and the thing that resonated with a lot of people was when he called Matt Rule and said he was going to commit to Nebraska was, hey, I want to build something here. I want to be a legend here. I want to have my own legacy here, right? And that is a tough argument to make to a lot of different recruits because there are guys like Dylan Raiola who look at Nebraska as an opportunity to be bigger than just, hey, being on a winning team. But then there are plenty of other recruits who go, no, I'm going to go to the winning program. I'm going to go to the program with more talent. I'm going to go to the program that has had more success because, despite the fact that it would be cool to build a legacy and build something there's a risk. There's an inherited risk in doing that. And so that's where Nebraska is in terms of when they go up against the big dogs in that regard, they're always going to be at a disadvantage because of the lack of success over the last couple of years, which is why at the end of the day, we talk about all these different aspects and, this and that, and why can't they get this guy? And this has been the problem. It just comes down to winning. It just comes down to Saturdays. Like if they just find a way to win on Saturdays, because everything becomes easier. And like that is just the most important thing, general, period, end of story. And so it's just incumbent, especially this year with the roster that they've had and the guys that they've recruited and all the development that they've poured into it. It just has to win. They got everything else. They got a lot of really good things going for them, but they just have to win. That's just it. That's just where we're at.
I'll talk to Sam about this because can you function if your best recruiter is your head coach? Which might be the case at Nebraska. Sam McKewon of the World Herald will join us next on 1620 The Zone.
Well, it's not. Underdog just became one of the best places to make picks during the basketball playoffs with their extender promo. With the extender, you can play your way to increasingly bigger boosts each round of the playoffs. See, I'm keeping it positive. I'm not mad at it because Joker needed to get one more rebound, but who's counting? Anyway, Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog, and will you be next? Playing Underdog is a layup. Get it? See what they did there? Just download the app, pick higher or lower on player stats like points, assists, or more, like rebounds. You just needed one more damn rebound. Anyway, I'm over. I'm good. We're gonna win tonight. If you get your picks correct, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So you could turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. And this week, now that Nick Castellanos didn't do what he had to do, we're just all dialed back in on the NBA playoffs because it's going to win me. I just know it. Tonight's going to be a good night. We'll do that during one of the breaks here. We'll figure out, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. But for now, download the Underdog app and sign up with promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code ZONE. Must be 19 plus, a Nebraska resident, a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/extend.html for details. Consider your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
All right, let's welcome in Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. Good Tuesday, Sam.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. So prepare yourself here. We're not going to talk about a portal recruiting. I want to ask you about high school football recruiting when it comes to Nebraska, and not the in-state stuff, but just overall in the class of 26. Because Matt and I were talking about running back recruiting, and the 4-star from Valencia, California, has Nebraska among the finalists. Nebraska hasn't been in that atmosphere for a while of that kind of a running back. Your assessment on Nebraska's high school recruiting moving forward in the day and age of the portal, because they haven't gotten a commitment since the 26th of November. And CJ Bronoff from Orlando, who I think is a steal, by the way, as a defensive back, great athlete. They haven't had a lot of visits during the spring. What's your assessment of how they're approaching moving forward their high school recruiting?
I think this particular class is going to get pinched because of the roster sizes and the relative youth of that roster. So even, like they're going to take it down to 105, but they got a bunch of young guys. The 2 classes ago was 30, and I think 6 or 7 of those guys have left. And then the 24 class was quite big too. And a lot of those guys are still here. And then they signed what they signed here in 25. And so they're going to have a young roster for a couple of years. And so I think they're a little pinched in this class. They're going to try to go after the best players they can get. I know that they feel like they want to try to get players from California and Georgia and Florida and Texas, the best possible players that they can get. And sometimes, you're trying in previous eras, you're trying to create some momentum in your high school recruiting class by getting some recruits on the board. And sometimes the recruits you're getting on the board are guys that are kind of 3 and 4 stars that can help you peer recruit. And, they're a guy, hey, this guy's a project, but we like him and we're going to take him and he's going to commit to us and he's going to help us recruit and all this other stuff. And I just don't think that's as much in play in this class. I think it's going to be a class of, 12 to 15 high value targets, just really high, high level, high ratings. And then I think the plan is to win some football games during the season and maybe go back out to some of these guys come late November and re-gauge some of their interest, because some of these guys may commit elsewhere. So I think that's the way that they're playing it. And, it's a little bit, I think it's probably going to work. But it's also, there's a little bit of risk involved, because a lot of the guys that you would normally, some of your plan B options in state, they're committed to Iowa State.
Mm-hmm. Sam, if they're not able to secure Marty Brown from North Dakota State, do you think it's time to push the panic button in the running back room?
I don't. No, I think your starter is Emmett Johnson, and he fits the Dana Holgerson offense. Not that you don't want a downhill back, but I think Quentin Ives is a player that can accomplish a percentage of what Marty Brown would do, for sure. But the reality is, Emmett Johnson's the starter. So like if Marty Brown's coming here with the intention of like, well, hey, I'm coming here to start, and you're going to have to supplant Emmett Johnson so that I can play. I don't think that's going to be Nebraska's move. And so, I would assume that if he's visiting Nebraska, there's an understanding of like, I'm going to be in a room where I share carries. I'm probably not going to be the first guy that runs onto the field on 3rd down. I'm probably not out there. That may come to pass. Sure. He may develop into a 3-down player or a potential starter, but Emmett Johnson has earned that role. And, again, I watched a lot of Marty Brown's tape over the last however many days. And what I would say is that, he's really good between the tackles. He breaks tackles. He drags tacklers. He runs over people. I wouldn't describe him as having a similar skill set to Emmett Johnson. I think Emmett Johnson has a unique one. And so I think the two can complement one another. But no, I don't think it's a panic situation. I think if they have to rely on Quentin Ives to be the power guy, then that's what they'll do. And it won't be, I think Marty Brown would add to the room, but I don't think it's a panic situation if they don't get it.
Yeah, I agree about adding to the room. And, he ran in a system at North Dakota State where it's downhill running. Can you recall, because I think Quentin Ives is a mystery to all of us. Can you recall a 6'3" running back being used as a power guy?
Well,
He's got an interesting
yeah.
style if we're going to label him like that. And we're not the ones that labeled him. His coaching staff labeled him that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the history of Nebraska football, LP was 6'2". And so, yes, you can do it. Now, LP was a better player than he did everything. But, Quentin Castile was 6'2", 6'3". Trey Robinson, who was only here for a year, but a good player before he transferred to Montana, was about that size. You can do it. But I think one of the challenges and one of the things they've had to change in terms of Ives is that in high school he was an upright runner who was a big play guy. He broke it outside a lot. He, outran guys, kind of like Sevion Morrison, who's now at Kansas. And they weren't able to make Sevion a power guy. And so I think Quentin, it's been a transition for him to move into a role where it's like in between the tackles. And Marty is lower to the ground, so he's 5'11", 6 foot, and usually that's better. I mean, if I had my druthers, all of your running backs are under 6 feet. I tend to like the shorter guy. I like guys that can get lost in the shuffle, and then they come out the other side and nobody knows where they're at, and they're hard to tackle. And so I'm a big Amir Abdullah guy. That's the guy that I like. I liked Rex. Rex is about 5'11". So I've always been more partial to the shorter backs that are, physical and can get under you like a boxer, like Joe Frazier can get under you. I like those guys more than the Derrick Henrys. Although again, I respect Derrick Henry a great deal. But I've always liked the slightly shorter guys who are a little bit lower to the ground.
What was Hulu? Hulu 6 foot?
He was. Yeah, he was 6 foot, 215. So he was he was probably in the middle there. But if you look back, I mean, Amon was probably a 5'11".
Yeah.
Rozier was 6 foot. I don't know. Usually the best backs in Nebraska history, with the exception of LP, depending on where you rate him, have been in that 6 foot, 5'11" range. Amir was 5'9". Rex was about 5'11", and then LP was 6'2". He was, I don't know, whatever he was, 6'2.5" or whatever he was. But most of the best backs,
Sam, where you rank him, LP is number one.
No, he's not. But that's I respect that. I respect your opinion.
Not to go down the rabbit hole.
So who do you? Yeah, we won't turn this into a discussion.
Yeah.
But,
Rozier. Yeah,
okay.
Mike Rozier. Yeah, I think he earned that, and I think
I would listen because he's 2 on my book.
Yeah,
Mike.
I think it's respectable.
He was good in the NFL too. I mean, Rozier played in weird offenses in the NFL. He played for the Oilers for a bunch of years, and that was a run and shoot. And so he was in kind of a different offense for him. And then, in the Falcons, he played some. But yeah, I mean, I think Rozier would be my number one. And then, after that, you have to assess lots of different factors, but certainly Phillips' talent puts him, in probably number 2 in my book. So, but the reality is Nebraska's had just untold great backs along the way. And Amon was great. Nobody really knows what to do with Bobby Reynolds because nobody really saw him. Well, we have a film, and and he was maybe the best sophomore running back that the country's ever seen before he got hurt. And so we don't know what to do with him per se. We don't know exactly what to do with Roger Craig because he didn't hit his peak until the NFL. But Rozier, I think, is my number one. Probably Phillips. But I'll tell you what, like that to me, that part of the debate's less interesting than where Amir ranks. So I put Amir in the top 5. Not everybody does that.
That's true.
People don't do that with him, and I'm like, yeah, I think he's top 5. I think he won Nebraska, I don't know, 6 or 7 games across the 2013 and 2014 seasons that they don't win. They don't beat McNeese State. Yeah. If Amir Abdullah doesn't do what he does. And I know the game was tied, but they weren't going to beat that team in overtime. The pressure was too great.
They don't beat Northwestern.
No. So, like Amir Abdullah won them so many games by himself. And so I put him in the top. I might even go 4th, but, he's in my top 5 for sure. So, I'm always more interested in sort of the downstream effect, the downstream rankings, like people will talk about who the top quarterback is of all time. That's an easy discussion. I'm more interested in what you do with 3, 4, and 5 versus, talking, everybody knows Tommy's number one. So like, I'm always interested in what you do down the stream. And so when I think about running backs, I'm always thinking about how do you get another Amir? How do you get another Rex? Not how do you find, LP. I just don't think that player, probably comes to Nebraska anymore. That, there's just too many people watching film now that are able to see huddle and whatever. So it's hard to get that player at this point. It's hard to get Micah Parsons, probably the most talented football player. I was talking to my wife about this. I'm like, who's the most talented player I've ever seen? Well, Sue and Dominican Sue probably, but Micah Parsons is probably number 2. And I saw him at a high school camp.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this guy's not coming here. I mean, my God, why would he come all the way out to Nebraska? So, it's hard to get those players anymore. Nebraska used to get them with some regularity, but it's harder to get them.
Sam, macro kind of college football question here. The CFP committee is meeting right now. I don't know if they're meeting as we speak, but they're going to make some decisions on the impending college football playoff and then the next year after. I feel like with all of these different rule changes and the changing landscapes, we've heard a lot of fans be like, all right, this is it. This is ruined. Football's ruined for me. I don't like college football anymore. I'm not that big of a fan anymore. But it seems like the powers that be have always kind of called their bluff and been like, hey, we know that you're going to watch football regardless of what you think is happening in the offseason. Do you think that there are decisions that could be made during this meeting that might break the proverbial camel's back if certain rules that we've heard rumored are actually put into place?
Like which like
the TV ratings having to do with the tiebreaker and the SEC and the Big Ten automatically because they're a big conference getting qualifiers and
right.
kind of the weeding out of just the smaller schools in general?
If you go to 16 teams, I'm very comfortable with the Big Ten and the SEC getting 4 auto bids.
Yeah,
I'm very comfortable with that. I think that would be appropriate. If you stay at 12, I don't. I mean, I think it's half the field. So if you have 3 auto bids, if it's 12, 4 if it's 16. The one thing I will say is I just thought college football dragged on a little too long this year. Mm-hmm. So by the time Ohio State played Notre Dame, it felt anticlimactic. It felt like the biggest games were the semis, and maybe even on New Year's Day. So that I think they've got to find a way to just, start at the very next week after the conference championship games and quit screwing around with this delay period. Just like the NFL, just play the games. I think there's that. And then I think they've got to figure out a way to slow down the portal. And I don't know exactly, how you're going to do it. I don't know that the CFP can resolve that. I think there's some challenges there, but I think that's one area where you've got to find a way to create, maybe the Big Ten has to have a rule like the SEC where you can't transfer in conference.
Yeah.
I would assume that the Big Ten and the SEC could have rules about transferring to all kinds of conferences. But of course you can't govern the other conferences.
Sure.
And so, could the leagues get together and figure those things out? I think that would probably be beneficial. I think there's a split discussion about whether, you put in the House settlement and you go to revenue sharing, and you have this clearinghouse. Will it work? Won't it work? Or do you just have a straight up free market with NIL? I think there's a lot of people who want to do that and enforce employee contracts and go from there. And we'll see. I think the sport eventually is going to get to a union. I do. Whether I think that's the right decision or not, the way I read the tea leaves is lawyers are going to keep litigating, and the media, the national media, especially on social media, is going to keep clamoring over and over and over for a union. Do they know why they're doing that? I don't think so. But irrespective of that, do I think a union could be the solution? I don't know. I think it'll end up restricting the athletes more than it does now, but that's what people want. You can tell that everybody's just clamoring for collective bargaining. That's what they want. Now you have lawyers suing for extra years of eligibility. As I think I've even said this to you guys. There is nothing that tells me that you can bind a student athlete to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years of eligibility if a judge decides on a given day to think it should be in place. And so the way I've always said it is what's going to stop a student athlete for saying, I should be able to stay here as long as I want, so long as I'm enrolled in college. And the only thing I'll say is that a judge will just look at it and go, no, I don't think they should be able to do that. Just total caprice, just capriciousness. Like at this point, that's all we're like. The JUCO ruling was, to me, was capricious. We're no longer in the realm of like people sort of thinking their way through it. You're just somewhere along the line, you're going to get a judge that's just like, they should have no buy-in. There should be no boundaries to their eligibility.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
It's like,
yeah.
so you're going to have collective bargaining in place so the judge can say, well, here's an agreement that says that the eligibility ends at this period of time. And the athletes have agreed to it.
So stupid.
So now I have an agreement. Like, that's how it's going to work.
It's man, can we just get to the season? Sam, as always, we appreciate it. We'll see you later today, and of course this weekend at the Husker games.
Yeah, I can't wait. Take care.
Matt Rule speaks today. It'll be the last time that Rule speaks for the spring.
Yeah, because there might be a sideline interview that happens at the Husker games.
That thing's
going
to be a circus.
There's no press conference afterwards.
Yeah.
There's also, by the way, a media challenge in the schedule. I haven't been contacted, unfortunately. You want to see me catch a punt? You think I could catch a punt?
I think that'll come out today or tomorrow. What's going on? Also, Pat Stewart speaks this week.
Yes.
He'll speak on Thursday. All right, we will speak after the break. Brian Christopherson still to come on Gary and Matt in 1620 The Zone. All right, so Cam Jurgens, one of the first things he's going to do is get TSA pre-check. Cindy writes in to the Equitable Bank inbox, Gary, for $15 more, you could have global entry. Hopefully Cam won't make the same mistake. GBR, that is from Cindy.
What's global entry?
I'm afraid to ask.
You are pre-approved if you're a low-risk traveler. You get expedited clearance upon arrival in the United States. So instead of like a
Customs?
I don't think it takes the place of a passport.
I wouldn't think so.
I would.
But
I don't know. It sounds like you don't have to go through.
It gets you through U.S. Customs in the border.
Okay,
like
that's
Canada
nice.
or Mexico.
Okay.
That's nice.
I think.
If you're a would you consider yourself a world traveler?
No.
Do you want to be a world traveler?
When I lived in a different part of the country,
Yeah.
I would go to different countries easier because it was a quick
Right.
flight or something,
Sure.
or boat trip.
I want to go to Spain, and Ireland, and then I'm good.
pretty much the same country.
I don't really need to go anywhere else. It's not the
That's
same
it.
Maybe
country.
just a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm
There
good.
are other places in Europe that I think you could do an entire tour content.
I'm good. I'm fine. I want to go to Spain to
Matt,
have
London?
tapas and wine, and I want to go to Ireland to just drink with my people.
Aer Lingus next
Exactly. I would love to go to an Aer Lingus Classic. I think the Aer Lingus Classic gear is incredible.
Well, I doubt Nebraska will ever go back there.
I don't think they do want to go back there. Just bad memories
Yeah.
all around.
So Matt Rule speaks today. You know, a guy, and again, it's been a quiet spring, and there have only been a couple of opportunities for media to watch practice and the circus that'll happen on Saturday.
year. They should have animals.
Well, I'm sure that was proposed as well, but there's just a lot of moving parts to Saturday.
Yeah.
The Rule speaks today. You know, a name, and he's, for all intents and purposes, if you ask, he's had a good spring. Vincent Shaver's name has hardly been mentioned.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And he's a key player. And not just a key player in terms of the production he's going to have, a key player in terms of he needs to get better, right? I mean, he's got a ton of potential. You need to have some development there because he's not a guy that played a ton of football last year. Sans looking incredible at the Pinstripe Bowl. I was thinking the same exact thing.
Yeah, like him and Ja'Cory Barney are two guys that haven't been mentioned a ton. They're out there. They're having a good spring.
Yeah.
But like guys that are returning.
I'll give you another name. Have you heard a lot of McGahee either? I've heard a little bit, but not as much.
It might be a little bit. Dvorak has only spoke once. And on that day, he talked about Watson Trent, and he talked about McGahee and Shavers. And then Rule talked about early in spring about how we need Shavers to be a guy that can come off the edge, and I think he threw in McGahee. But yeah, just I don't know. It's kind of maybe spring is more about the new guys that have arrived instead of, because here's another name that we have not really talked. We've talked more on the radio about.
Sure.
Nebraska really hasn't talked about their quarterback.
No. Well,
but
I do think there's a reason for that. Okay. And I think the reason is that anytime that Dylan is mentioned, and he's been mentioned, there's been a headline. There's been a long discussion about it, right? And even if Matt Rule at this point, he has said some things that in his mind weren't directed at him or weren't negative toward him, and they were taken negative toward him, right? The whole he can't be a great quarterback at 240 pounds. I think that being taken with and ran with, not necessarily by us, but just by people in general, whether it be on Twitter or media or fans, I think Matt Rule at this point knows that when he brings up Dylan's name, that there are going to be a lot of conversations, whatever the connotation or whatever the context is. And I don't know if he necessarily wants that. And I do. I mean, he is at the end of the day.
You think he really thinks about that?
I think
he's got to have talk about his quarterback. Him and his quarterback are tied together. They are the hope. They are the hope in year number 3 of Matt Rule and year number 2 of Dylan.
I agree.
We have to talk about him.
But
like ask him today. Ask him, hey, what kind of spring has Dylan had? Then I got to follow up for that.
Okay. What if I answered? I'll answer the question. Dylan's Dylan. Dylan's having a really great spring. He's really taking command of the offense. I think he's emerging as a leader. He looks really, really good in the huddle. And, we're really happy with the steps that he's taken this spring, especially from what he did last season and getting comfortable with the offense. What would your follow-up be?
Wouldn't be a follow-up, but I'd be like, impressive. There were no cliches in there. But they just haven't. like even other people really haven't talked about him.
No.
I mean, they're out there and they're going through spring, and you've heard nothing but positive things. It's just guys that are returning, we don't talk about much, but guys that either change positions or are new, and maybe that's the way spring is going, is we want to know about them because we already know about, like, I would really like to know what kind of spring has Ja'Cory Barney had? Like, Ja'Cory Barney's the leading returning receiver.
Yeah.
But when they start rattling off wide receivers, you don't get to him until like the third or fourth, and you're like, he's going to have a role. Maybe that's just spring. Here would be my follow-up to Rule.
Sure.
Oh, you believe that's wrong?
Not that I believe.
Is Barney having a bad spring?
No. I don't believe that's wrong that Barney's having a good or bad spring or whatever. I just think that sometimes we buy in a little bit too much, in my opinion, to what is being said and who's being complimented and in that regard. And that I don't think because of a guy is not being mentioned with this program is necessarily a bad thing, because we've seen this coaching staff have no quarrel with calling out guys in the media, saying that guys aren't playing well, saying that guys aren't doing a good job. So I feel like with this staff in particular, if a guy's doing bad, right, if he's not having a good spring or he needs to develop or there's steps that he needs to take, they're going to tell you. I don't think it's maybe with other programs, right, like them not being mentioned would be taken as a bad thing. I think that there's been so much transparency over the last couple of years when guys aren't performing.
Go back to something you said that is, I think, wrong. They do talk about guys and you have to listen, and it's okay for them because sometimes we gloss over. Go back to last year. Who was a linebacker that they talked about that people had to scramble to find their program to see who the hell this guy is?
John Bullock.
Oh, no. He was a main guy.
Okay. Well, that was 2 years ago.
And he has now been one of the stories of the spring.
Bowers?
So Jacob Bauer last year was mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
And for the most part, he was playing just special teams. But people had no idea who he was. And they're like, you think, okay, are they just throwing that out there? Because they also mentioned something about some, like Dylan Parrott. Okay, Grant Seagren.
Yeah.
And they're like, come on, coach. So don't just brush off that stuff, because let's fast forward to now. Jacob Bauer, who is part of the linebacker room, but also has a story of how in the hell did he end up at Nebraska? Considering the school he played at, the high school conference he played at, and his history with a rugby connection, how is he here? Is he the next Stuart Bradley? So I think there are some guys that they mention that we may not go, okay, he's not one of the frontline guys. But those kind of guys I always put on my radar of, okay, when do they mention him again? And Bauer last year came up a couple of times during the season and didn't really get much run because he was just a special teams guy.
Yeah.
Now he gets like the moment of the spring when they offer him a scholarship the other day. Okay, here's your follow-up to Rule.
Okay.
So Rule's family must have been out of town this weekend because he went to UTAN.
Okay.
You've seen the picture of the Bo Pelini mural that is in UTAN on the side of a building?
No, I have.
So
that's random.
Got the hoodie on?
So Rule went to UTAN. I got another one. Hey, he was small town guy this past weekend. He on Instagram does a picture of him standing in front of the Bo Pelini mural because it's in UTAN. It was put up after the 2010 season, so it's been up there for a while. And you know what was thrown out about bringing Bo back for the spring game.
Yes.
So it makes you go, Okay, the other thing, here would be also your follow-up.
Okay.
The cat?
This might be the best question he gets all day.
If you know what? If I think this is a good one, I will take
now you got to read the room. You got to read room because
Okay.
they're practicing today. You don't know what kind of mood he's going to be in.
True.
They could
That's a
have
good
a
point.
crappy practice, and he may be ticked off.
Well, I think
Okay.
I don't know.
Coach
And he,
Giona came.
or he may be, you know what? I need to buy me some time. I'm going to bluster some more because Nebraska fans like me blustering. That can buy me some time in case we don't win.
It's honestly dependent on how many coffees that he's had. I feel like the less amount of coffees he's had, the less huffy and puffy.
I mean,
he
that's
is.
you say the same for me.
I know.
Yeah.
There are times where
some coffee.
I'll tell you right now. Last week was a fiery presser. He came in being like, "This is my fourth coffee."
So he's in a good
Yeah.
mood.
Tell you what,
No, it's the opposite.
Hey.
Oh, he's tired.
He's got the Obama in the White House effect going.
Ooh.
Nebraska football job ages you.
Yeah.
But ask him this.
Okay.
What's his favorite Tyler Johnson song?
Okay.
Do we have any Tyler Johnson fans in the audience?
Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from Minnesota, who played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That Tyler Johnson?
I think it's a country western singer.
I've never heard of Tyler Johnson.
I mean, in your defense, the only Tyler Johnson I heard of played on our basketball team at KU 10 years ago.
I mean, Tyler Johnson was a really, really good draft pick in the 5th round by Tampa Bay, but he never really got on, in part because Scotty Miller. And then Trey Palmer actually took some of his receptions.
So, Rule and Crouch were out at Buck's Bar and Grill. You guys ever been there?
No.
It's a treat. It's in Venice.
Okay.
Not very far from here.
Okay.
So that's where
Sounds like a
Rule.
good place to
That's
get a
where
burger.
Rule was the other night.
I went to a karaoke bar,
And Rule was there.
and guess who was sitting next to me?
Rural?
Brian Olsen from the
Greg
X,
Olsen.
who was not at the X, The Voice. He was on The Voice.
Bucks
He was the
Barnett
Lincoln
on
singer from The
Instagram.
Voice. He ended up being in the top 5. I sat down and I looked to the right of me. It was the guy who was on The Voice. He finished top 3. He absolutely incredible. Tore down the karaoke bar. And then I had to go right after him. It was
Ooh.
absolutely embarrassing.
This looks good, eh? Gizzards?
What do you think he would say if I asked him what his favorite Tyler Johnson song was? Or ask him if you... Hey,
Ask
Coach.
him. I would
Hey,
ask him
Coach,
this.
how was
I mean,
Bucks?
I would say, how was Buck's Bar and Grill?
What do you think the reaction? I feel like he would get mad at me if I asked him.
Why?
I know. He'd probably go into a 5-minute... It'd go viral. We'd end up talking about it tomorrow. It's like, all right, Matt. You got Matt Rule to...
I don't know. It feels like I'm trying to do like
I don't
a
think he wants to talk, I don't think he wants to talk football.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, his best answers have definitely been when you don't ask him about his team specifically.
By the way,
There you go.
By the way, I've got that name on Tyler Anthony,
Oh,
not Johnson.
Oh.
I got another
Not Greg Anthony.
because I'm communicating with somebody that is Tyler Johnson right now.
This menu, though.
Tyler
fantastic.
Anthony band, country rock artist. Maybe I'll listen. I might drive to Lincoln today. Maybe I'll listen to a couple of his songs.
So he is become very, very popular. I think he is. Where is?
Oh wow, his latest post from Tyler Anthony, and immediately it's wow. Look at Matt Rule's getup. I did not see this picture.
Mhm.
He does not look like a guy who grew up in New York in that outfit. He looks like your classic Midwesterner with the beige on beige, with the quarter zip over the collar and a nice little trucker hat. Wow. He's really assimilated to the culture of Midwest dressing and going to a country bar. I mean, they're not dressing like that in New York. They're not. I mean, if he showed up like that at a bodega bar, they'd be like, Matt, what the hell are you wearing? Quarter zip over a collar is a statement.
I don't know. I saw Michael Wilbon on PTI yesterday. He was a 3-collar guy.
That's a lot of collars.
I don't know if he lost a bet or not.
It's like when I was in college and dudes would wear 3 polos.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So Tyler Anthony is taking off.
Good for he looks like a country singer. He looks like a guy who can bellow a voice. Do you remember Brian?
Go ahead and play more stereotype.
regular Dwight
He looks
Yoakam,
like he
that
can
Tyler
belt it.
Anthony.
He looks like he could belt it. I like my country singers with a little bit of meat on the bone. Like, who's the newest?
We were talking about girls in the same way the other day in here.
And yeah, absolutely.
And steak.
I'm not going to go too deep into that. But what's that guy?
He's at the Island Bar this weekend. I know that.
Zach, not Zach Short. Zach Top or
It's Carrot.
I'm just gonna go ahead. Just keep rattling off names.
But Brian Colangelo, the former Philadelphia 76er general manager,
Jerry's son,
the
legendary Jerry
who
Colangelo.
got caught with the burners, who was talking a lot of crap about Joel and all that. Like he had like
Durant
8 different
does the same
burner
thing.
accounts. Do you remember his high collars? Do you remember how big when Brian Colangelo would be up on like an oppressor, how high his collar would go?
Is that who you're trying to figure out?
No, I don't think it is.
Zach Brown?
Not Zach Brown. No, not Zach Brown Band. Zach Brown Band is awesome. It's
Luke Combs?
not Luke Combs.
So you think
He's
that
a
country?
new-
You
I
think
think
that country
country
artists have to be fat?
No, they got to have a little bit of meat on the bone. There's difference between being fat and have a little meat on.
Luke Combs, who is one of the hottest country stars right now,
one of the
I'm
greatest
sitting back
singers
for
ever.
would you So he can't be a good country singer
No, he
because
can't.
he has way too much meat on the bones.
No.
Is that why
What
Jelly
about-
rolls on a diet?
It's more so. Well, Jelly. I mean, dude.
Because that dude
he
can sing.
He can be on much of a diet as he wants, and he'll still have some meat on the bone. Okay, he's gonna be okay.
Is pre-working out Lizzo, would she be more of a country singer in your world now that she can't be
Like
because she's
Post
in shape?
Malone. Post
True.
Malone, too skinny to be a country singer.
Okay.
Like
Really?
I want
'Cause I
my,
saw differently
I
in
want my
Nashville.
country singers looking like Shane Gillis.
Okay. What about Charlie Daniels?
More meat on the bone. I don't know who Charlie Daniels is.
Oh my god. That actually surprises me. An old soul like you who's
Like-
frequented the establishments
like,
in Lincoln.
Like George Strait, like he's an exception. Alan Jackson, those older guys, maybe they're the exception. They're taller.
Vince Gill,
They were
yeah.
all skinny.
Clay Travis,
but I'm
not
s-
Clay Travis.
Randy Travis.
Randy
No.
Travis.
Clay Travis ain't
Clay.
fat either.
I bet Clay would be a pretty good. He's got a good voice. I bet he'd be pretty good at karaoke bar. No, I just like Chris Stapleton. Chris Stapleton ain't skinny. Even Zach Brown.
I think,
He's got is there Zach Bryan? Zach Bryan. He's got a little he's a little meatier. He's not like skinny. Morgan Wallen's got some muscle on him. Now Riley Green. He's not. He's not.
I see this picture now. Rule looks like a dad. I like it. That's nice.
Dude, that is the opposite of what he looks like. That is like the quintessential Midwestern country bar outfit. It's
I don't know,
incredible.
him and Crouch were out at Bucks. So just get on Center Street and just go about 200 blocks from here, 220, 30 blocks from here.
Well,
That's not too far away from
I have
me
to
then.
continue to take your advice, not to do yourself before you do others, but the going out to bars, drinking more, and talking to people. We were on a tour in that regard. So
Dan on the stream says, "What about John Cash?"
Johnny Cash.
Well, right. That's
No,
what Dan
I'm
meant.
saying the older guys are exempt from this. I'm saying the newer artists.
So old guys could be fat.
No, they can
Johnny
be
Cash
skinny.
was a big guy.
Yeah.
They can be skinny.
Chris Christopherson was tall.
They can be skinny. But I'm saying
Chris
that
Stapleton is larger than Luke Combs.
Willie, always the same size.
larger. Oh, like
Shout
in
out
weight
Willie.
or in popularity.
No, Chris Stapleton's not more popular than Luke Combs.
No,
I mean, they're right up there.
I think Luke Combs is probably the most popular country singer right now.
What about women? What about Barbara Mandrell?
Ooh.
Loretta Lynn?
Yeah.
What about Reba?
I love Reba.
You think Reba would be better if she was a little bit heftier?
I relate to Reba's.
That's a good
songs.
question.
Single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids and never stop.
That's true. I do hear
Heart
that.
of a
I
fighter.
do think Matt McMaster.
I'm a survivor. I am a single
you
mom.
know that was the TV show.
A single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves her kids and never stops. With working hands and a heart of a fighter, I'm a survivor.
What about Darius Rucker?
Too skinny. Same thing with Kane Brown. Too skinny. And they're too pop too.
He's
What
gonna be doing
about,
a
you know,
TV show.
like you
Not
think
Darius Rucker, but
you think
Kane
Kenny
Brown.
Chesney might be too skinny?
might be. But he
Too
might
skinny?
be. But like Blake Sheldon, that's the shining example of like
Just
meat
an
on the
everyday
bone.
looking guy.
Exactly.
Got a little pouch.
Like
Jason Aldean. Jason Aldean is like that. He got a little
Yeah.
pouch.
little pouch.
Luke
Little
Bryan's a
stomach.
skinny guy.
So Luke Bryan used to be fatter though, and I think that's when Luke
They all
Bryan
did.
used to be better. And now Luke Bryan has gotten he's gotten a little Hollywood with his chiseled jaw and his nice watches.
Did Luke Bryan used to be fat?
I don't remember that.
A little bit bigger. He used to be
I
a
was
little bit bigger.
bigger too,
thought he
but
was
I
just the
drank a
same.
lot.
A little bit bigger.
Okay. So, let's use the guy that we mentioned, Tyler Anthony.
Perfect size.
Waylon wasn't fat.
Perfect size. Tyler Anthony, chef's kiss. That's how I want my country singer looking.
Wow.
Have a little roll over the belt.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
like
little
the
roll to go with
beard,
that
the
jelly.
beard is definitely covering up, the lack of a jawline, but it's still a great looking beard. Type of guy where it's like he's shaving and he looks completely different.
So Matt Rule.
Shabuzi.
Oh,
No. Shabuzi makes bangers.
the kids like Shabuzi.
Makes bangers.
kids
Very
like
good music.
whiskey.
I don't know. Like it's country pop. It's not country. It's not country. I'm not going to say, oh, it's not country.
It's not Hank.
There's a twang and it relates. It relates, but it ain't.
It's not played on
It's
Willie's
pop country.
Roadhouse.
Yeah, I would say
on
Morgan
Sirius.
Wallen is pop country. A
yeah,
lot of
he's got some crossover, but I think he would consider himself country. So Morgan Wallen,
pop country.
okay,
Big arms,
but he's not a huge guy. He's actually a little tiny fella.
he is a
He
little.
was here for the
tiny,
College World Series. He's a little fella.
but he's how tall is he?
A tiny
He's not
baby
very
country
tall.
singer.
Really?
I bet he's 5'10".
Wow,
6'4" with the afro.
that's insulting. I mean, I would.
I'm
I don't.
5'10".
I don't think I'm tiny.
He's a little fella.
I wouldn't consider 5'10" a little fella.
He's a little fella.
What if they're starting at the
5'10",
4?
5'10"
He isn't
is
very big.
5'10" is average. 5'11". That's the average height of an American male is 5'10".
Okay, Eric Church.
Okay, so that's a tough one.
Oh,
You got me. I think I've been able to defend a lot of them.
Garth?
be careful here. I'm a big. Hold on, we'll get to him in a moment because I'm gonna tie this all back to Tyler Anthony to get you out of this predicament.
It's not a predicament.
So Eric Church, I'm a big fan of the Chief,
I love Eric Church too.
but
I remember
do
you
you
said
think
this.
that he struggles to find a niche because he's too skinny and for his age in shape?
No,
Should he eat more?
I think that
Do you think he should go to Cookout more in North Carolina?
I don't
Do
know.
you
if-
think he should go to Bojangles
Hell
more?
yes.
I don't know.
Biscuits.
I can't really speak on like why
Drink
Eric
Cheerwine
Church
heavy.
isn't necessarily on the upper tier A echelon of country singers. Like he is. We agree he's a tier B guy.
'Cause he sang To Kill a Bird.
I know. Oh, that's a great song.
I once killed a bird when I was 5, and I paid
that
for it
and
every day
Monsters is
since.
a great
Kill a
song
Word,
too.
I mean.
I don't know. To Kill a Word. To
Yeah,
Kill a Word.
yeah.
I don't know why he's not considered a top guy. Maybe if he was fatter and could sing a little bit stronger, he would be a top dude.
See, you should
Maybe,
ask
I don't
Rule
know.
this as a follow-up question. You probably get a 10-minute answer.
Would Matt Rule be a good country singer in your world?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
he would
right, final one here. Garth Brooks.
once again, part of the older back, like not as relatable as the newer guys.
Fat guys get grandfathered in.
They do.
All right. So to tie this all back to how this conversation started,
Fat Joe was sitting in the front row at the Knick game last
he
night.
was.
On the pants,
But
the
that's-
girl next to her was
but-
wearing an
but
astronaut
hey,
pants.
Hey,
50 Cent. And yeah.
Severe's with me. I mean, singers, they used to be fat, they become skinny. You lose something.
Yeah.
I agree.
Shout out
Gotta be
Adele.
careful.
Oh,
Well,
love
gotta
me
be
some
careful.
Adele
Didn't it seem like
back
Pat
then.
Ewing was a little bit annoyed to be sitting by Bernard King?
No, that would seem to have been a good time.
I didn't know. I don't know. He looked like he was
Man,
kind of nodding
Bernard
off
King.
Bernard King.
What if he doesn't suffer that knee injury?
Yep.
That was a bucket getter.
Yep.
He was
Houston
kind
Rockets could use him right now. They can't get any buckets.
of.
Okay. So the fan club for Tyler Anthony, who we might as well just get on the show. He's playing in he's
yeah.
playing at the Island Bar out in Papillion this weekend.
Maybe she'll like
He is headlining a show middle of May. Not the Admiral. Is he at Sokol? He's at one of those. His fan club is the Certified Train Wreck. So I'm just gonna.
That's what they.
Yep.
That's what they call themselves.
Dan, last one before we go.
Yeah.
Great point here. Merle Haggard. Now, that's perfect size. Thick, but not too thick. A little danger in there.
Absolutely. You need a little. If you're a good
Hank
country
Williams.
singer, low. I just.
Do you think that's what hurt country music back in the day? Is that there weren't enough skinny guys? They were all a little bit heftier.
Yeah.
No, I think it helped them back in the day that they were all heftier.
Especially
what I'm
since
saying.
fast food wasn't as
Heftier, the
prevalent in
better.
those days.
If they're heftier, they're better. Minus
Charlie Pride.
minus George Strait, because I don't know how hefty George Strait would be. And he's
George
probably the
Strait is
greatest ever.
32-30.
He's the king. 32-30
Oh,
is
God.
impressive.
I'll never
I can
forget
still
when
pull
I was
that
at a
off
George
once in a while.
Strait concert, and he goes, "We want to thank our sponsor, Walmart. Biggest pop of the night was for when the Walmart name got dropped in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's like everybody there had a Walmart card. It was
Say it in
absolutely
Fayetteville,
incredible.
you get a louder ovation.
The only bigger prop probably would have been Costco.
Makes sense that Walmart would sponsor his tour.
They gave away a house at the
At
show.
the show?
Yeah, they gave
Wow.
away a house.
I just
Really?
I used
Yeah.
to get a T-shirt at the
George,
Spurs game.
George
for
gave
filling
away
out
a
a
house
credit
that was
card.
sponsored by Walmart, and then he gave away a bunch of like boots and stuff that was sponsored by Dr. Pepper.
He is the legend. And what was what they have in College Station a year ago? 120 or something
yeah.
like that
Yeah.
to watch him.
I'm expecting
Lord.
Texas to try and outdo that in Austin because that's how it works down
Put him
there.
in Memorial. I think it might be done though. His like last tour was named "The Cowboy Rides Away."
The Rolling Stones have
Nobody
been
ever
farewell
stops touring.
forever.
I'm waiting for Elton John to come back out.
Nobody ever stops wrestling either.
I saw McCartney in '93 at the Alamo Dome, and they said that would be his last tour, and he's still doing it.
I think we need to make retiring cool again. Some people just need to retire.
If you were to make an announcement at the end of the show, I'd be like, what is going on here?
No. I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking. They're just some older fellows.
This is the best way to wrap country music up here. This is from Dave. He says, what helped country music in the past was that they lived what they sang and lived what they sang.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays you have
Listen to this song.
Is he in an actual ring of fire?
Yeah.
Had a rough life. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
I should.
Yeah. All right. You got me thinking about something. I'm going to book Memorial Stadium for an event when we come back. Gary Matt, 1620 The Zone.
I still like the song.
How can you not like this song? This is the most not unlikable song ever.
That would be the Beer Barrel Polka.
Or the Boot Scootin' Boogie.
Now you're talking my childhood.
Boot Scootin' Boogie.
Catch up here on some emails in the Equitable Bank inbox. Cindy has come back
have a few.
about the global entry. It takes the place of TSA and is global. Okay.
Okay.
No,
I would assume.
No, she explained it to me. Yeah, okay.
I just don't travel enough outside of the country.
Is it
but thank you.
$85 one payment or $85 a year?
Nope, one time.
Yeah.
Oh
One
my
time.
God.
Yeah, they don't do layaway.
And Cindy's saying, so global entry is only $15 more.
Why don't more people do it? I don't get that's cheap.
I don't know, ask Cam Jurgens. John wants to know, Tay-Tay started as a country singer. Did she have to change because she wasn't fat?
No,
Matt?
No. She became a pop singer and probably the greatest singer of our generation.
Taylor Swift has some good country music. I remember.
The greatest performer of this generation.
That would be
Taylor
Wayne Newton.
Swift. Greatest performer ever, Taylor Swift. Pound for pound, singing. I don't know if she's the greatest singer ever, but the greatest performer, without a doubt.
Good July topic.
It's a great July topic.
It is. I actually saw her in July a couple years ago in Kansas City. I was
Damn, it's been 2 years already?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Is that the best performance you've ever seen, you think?
No.
What is?
Seeing Pink Floyd at the height of Pink Floyd was pretty good.
He wins.
I saw Rush when Geddy Lee was a banger.
Yep.
I saw Springsteen at Dodger Stadium.
Oh, that's awesome.
Slightly better, yes.
Yeah. I think Smashing Pumpkins for 3 songs at the Winter Classic was probably
the night at Arrowhead she did 42 songs.
Jeez.
I probably knew 20 of them. I mean,
about 500.
You got your money's worth because she was going nonstop and she put on a hell of a show.
I think that's good to not know every song at a concert.
You look at the set list before the previous set list before you go to a show at the Chai or anywhere else?
I do, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Just so if there is a song
I was curious what
that I have no idea what it is, then I listen to it before. Just once. I don't need to know the words. I just have to. Now, there's songs on there. If there's 10 songs on there, which this has happened before, where I don't know 10 songs, I'm not going to listen to all 10. Maybe I'll listen to 2 or 3. But I do check the set list.
Today is the last day for a college basketball portal that it's open, and it's going to. But that will not stop college basketball players from going into the portal, even though they've exhausted their eligibility.
So dumb.
Dawson Garcia is trying to play. Actually, it's not dumb to put your name in the portal in case something happens during the summer. But if you're so humor me here.
Okay.
Nebraska's got 2 scholarships left for basketball. They did kick the tires on Dawson Garcia at one time.
Yeah.
So
I'm not laughing at your idea. I didn't chuckle at your idea.
But do you think
I'm just chuckling at the entire premises of it.
It's stupid. It'll wreck the NCAA. But if you're going to make it employees, we're going here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So it's wise. Zeke Mayo is in the portal.
Yeah. Even Ian Schieffelin from Clemson. He's in the portal now.
He's played 134 games at Clemson. I think if I'm a Clemson fan, I'm good. I don't need to see him again. But think about it. If you're Fred and you got 2 scholarships left, do you hold on to one in case middle of the summer? Or what if you are Creighton? Jemiah Neal.
Wow.
Okay.
And he actually would fit perfectly into what they need in terms of the jumps that he took as a ball handler and getting to the basket. He would actually be an incredible compliment to Josh Dix in that starting lineup.
And he would be somebody you were putting your roster together, not thinking, and then on July 1, you're like, okay.
Well,
so that's the craziness that could happen, but it makes sense. But today's the last day for basketball.
You have
Thursday is the last day for football. Head on a swivel. Basketball, you hope today there's no last-minute surprises on your roster. Somebody that, yesterday was a busy day where a lot of, 7th, 8th, 9th men were jumping into the portal.
Yeah.
Unless you already had a deal. Football, there will probably be an influx over the next 2 days of players because now there is no going back. They're not going to grandfather people in.
No.
So we'll see if there's any last-minute surprise. I mean, there's going to be names from Nebraska. There will be.
Yeah.
There'll be names from Nebraska, and I imagine there will be some scholarship guys that are on scholarship here that maybe just arrived or have been here for maybe just a year that will be in the portal. So there's what we have for the rest of the week. But another part of the whole portal and roster and walk-ons are going away, and we'll have to use a different terminology. What if, and there are lawyers, and the NCAA doesn't know how to fight, so just sue the NCAA. And the people don't really care about the sanctity of the sport anymore. They just care about being right.
And having money in their pockets.
Yeah. What if somebody said, hey, Rule, and he says, you don't call me Rule. It's Coach Rule or Matt. Coach, I'm just going to pay my own way to be on the roster. What would stop Nebraska from saying, okay? What if a kid said, you know what, I'll donate to the NIL to be on the roster? What would stop somebody from saying, nah, you can't do that?
Okay, this is a great hypothetical. How good of a player are they? Because if they're not good, this isn't a guy that could actually have a chance.
No, it's not going to be like Bill, who, played JV football.
Yeah.
His parents have a bunch of cash. It would be somebody that, in the past would be a walk-on. Now they will get a scholarship. So essentially 15 walk-ons will be scholarshiped. We'll have to, whatever term you want to use, we're going to retire preferred walk-on, regular walk-on, whatever. But what if somebody came along and said, you know what? I'll pay my own way. What would prevent them from suing the NCAA?
Nothing. I think how
stupid this is.
I think you would take it if this was a guy that was an absolute like a pretty good player, and they were just like, hey, I'm going to pay to be on the roster. I don't think Nebraska would say no to that whatsoever. They would probably be like, hell yeah, this is incredible. We get to disperse this money elsewhere, and now we have more resources. And on top of that, we're able to get a guy who's a good player for free. Now, if this was a player that wasn't necessarily good, that maybe it would be a borderline player on your team, I would worry about the locker room, because you always have to worry about the locker room, and you don't want a player. Well, I don't think guys would appreciate if a guy was on the team taking up a very valuable roster spot.
No, he would be above the 105.
Yeah. If that was but I'm just saying, hypothetically, if this was like the 105th guy, that this was a dude that clearly wasn't going to play, but only was on the team.
The locker room?
I think that there definitely would be guys.
You are coaching a house of cards if that's the case.
Well, I definitely think that if there was a guy that was just clearly on the football team only because he was donating to the NIL, only giving money to be the only reason he is on that team because he paid his way to be on the team, with the fact that you have guys on the team who probably have friends who battled for a really long time to get into that 105. I definitely think that there would be a negativity toward that guy if he was only on the roster because he was paying his way.
Well, there wouldn't be a negativity if the guy worked hard and did work and helped the team get better.
Which is the point, is what I'm saying. If it was a good player who worked hard, who was part of the culture, who was a good part of the brand, why would any team say no to that? Why would you deny not only just having a player for free, but getting paid to take on a player that could help impact your team?
You offer to pay your own way, and they say, well, we can't do it because we got this thing that just got settled and it's going to be 105. Well, I got a lawyer, coach, and the program goes.
But the fact
go ahead. Go ahead. We'll watch from afar.
The fact of the matter is, and what's been frustrating about this whole process with all these new rules and all these regulations and the settlements that they're placing, is that really none of it matters, in my opinion, if you don't have a legislative board that can lay down the hammer, if you don't have a governing body that can actually enforce rules and punish teams. None of this, because we talk about, rev share and NIL is coming through, and NIL is going to be harder to donate because of the holding house. Well, what's going to stop teams from doing under the table money again? Right?
That's right. Cheating will be back.
Cheating will be back.
And you know what? It will make the sport better. Cheating was better and the sport was better when we could cheat and you did everything under the table.
Why?
Shout out Southwest Conference.
Why was the sport better? Because players stayed often. Players were on more teams regularly.
Are you saying
can
it
make
was
a
not?
connection.
Are you saying
No.
it was not?
Oh, it was.
It
Oh,
was.
1,000,000% was
It was.
better. But that's why. I don't know if it was under the table money made it that way. It was just
No, it was in
regardless.
a
I
Trans
think
Am.
even if you have under the table money, you're still going to get the
Kansas
wild
basketball
west.
would say,
Hell yes.
yeah, we need back to the old days.
Duffel bags.
Look, if you want to make this an actual league, there needs to be actual
There would have been
rules.
There would have been a guy showed up with money in a McDonald's sack for Nico. They wouldn't have had to go through this in the old days.
Mhm.
But I don't. Once again, if there's
seen blue
under the
chips.
table money,
No,
I
it's
don't
done.
think that's going to stop guys from transferring. It's guys are going to transfer regardless of whether or not there's under the table money. It's just here comes the thing back that was supposed to be eliminated because now you've implemented these rules without a governing body.
But there's a lot of schools, I would say Alabama football and Kansas basketball, who like to go to the old days because now everybody can pay everybody. And so it used to be not everybody paid
yes.
everybody.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, I got
Without
the good folks that run Pinnacle Bank Arena. They do a great job of keeping that place busy. They had Monster Jam this weekend. What are they? Are they doing? Is graduation in Memorial Stadium or in PBA?
It's in PBA this year.
All right, I got somebody graduating next year. We got to get that back into Memorial Stadium for next year.
God no. It was
Yeah, we do.
hot. It was hot.
Oh, come on. My graduation was hot, and I was sweating out a keg of
God.
Boulevard.
It was so bad, and it was 4 hours. And there were
Okay, so
many
next year,
people
let's
there.
go back to Memorial Stadium. That's where I want it. Okay, but at Pinnacle Bank Arena,
And that's where you guys had it, right? In the stadium, and you guys had AstroTurf. You could have gotten hurt.
Devaney Center.
Oh, okay.
We had turf. I almost fell. It was tough. Tripped over my gown. I recovered though.
Of course you did.
I'm an athlete.
You're
So
supposed to try
this
those
is,
on.
they want to turn Memorial Stadium into a year-round destination. I love, by the way, Stanford softball because they're redoing their field as they're playing in their football stadium.
Nice.
Have you seen how it's configured?
No.
They drew 13,000 to set a record
That's more than
over
football.
over the weekend. But it is very unique how they have it set up, and it looks really good. And there was the idea when Trev was here, with Jordy coming back, that Nebraska and Oklahoma would play a softball game at Memorial
Oh,
Stadium.
yeah, that's nice.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, it looks
Yeah.
out at the farm. It looks really, really cool.
Seriously,
They're
it's more
actually-
than they get for football.
exactly. So
Yeah.
they've talked about concerts. There's a fight with Bud to end his career that has been mentioned. Wrestling has been mentioned. Volleyball, you'd never go back because you can never top what
Right.
that day
Yeah,
was.
Sequels are
So
never good.
I got one for you. There's concerts. We're trying to give them concerts to fill up the place.
Kids
But
like
that's what they like to do is when everything is said and done, make it a year-round destination. I've got the perfect one for you. Ready?
Give
This
it
is
to
in
me.
your wheelhouse.
Give it to me.
This is in your wheelhouse.
Give it to me.
How come nobody ever mentions Lincoln, Nebraska for WrestleMania? Because
thought you were
now
gonna say
listen,
Lincoln
listen,
Park.
before
You're
you
cra-
start laughing,
You're crazy.
I'm
You're
listening.
no,
crazy.
no.
Where
you
are
know
they
why?
gonna-
No. Because you know what? Lincoln would have actually a say that they could host WrestleMania. What happens the night before WrestleMania and the night after?
The night before is SmackDown. The night after is Raw.
Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Well, looky there.
Yep.
Yep.
Brilliant idea.
Where are you going to put the Fanatics Wrestling World Experience in the North Concourse or at the old Golds Building, which has become where's the convention center in Lincoln that you
Well,
can even
this
have
isn't
that
going to
event?
happen overnight. So they're building all kinds of stuff in downtown Lincoln. I don't know if you noticed. They got hotels going up. They basically want everybody to move to downtown Lincoln. There's just buildings going up all over the place. Now, I don't know about the convention space, which is pretty important,
Yeah, it's
But-
probably the most important.
but we got some time. Think about this.
Where are all the indie wrestling promotions going to be? Because there's about 17 indie shows that happen.
The rail yard.
They're not, I mean, okay,
Throughout the rail
one,
yard.
Isn't there
there's
like an
one-
event center
there's
off
one-
84th
there's-
by
alright,
the...
There's one location. Where's the other one? The Zoo Bar?
Throughout, all over Lincoln.
They could never.
If
you
they could
I
do the
know.
draft in Green Bay.
Look, first off-
90,000 seat stadium. You've got an arena that's available for Friday night and Monday night.
I think that Lincoln. I
Bring
think
it to the heartland,
Can I
baby.
tell you? Okay,
You could
can I
use
tell you this?
Devaney.
Can I actually? I'll play your
Hey,
game. Can I
they're
play
going.
your game?
They're going outdoors. Hell in the Cell is going to be at
Wait.
PNC Park on the anniversary of Mankind and Undertaker this summer.
Hey.
They're going to Petco Park the end of November for Survivor Series, I believe.
Why
I've been
not
there.
Money in
Freezing
the Bank?
June.
Well, you can't do Money in the Bank in an open air stadium because how are you going to hang the briefcase? So that was a
Drones.
Bring a helicopter.
Drones.
put it on a pole. WCW
Just
loved it on the pole match.
Put this on the burner.
It's not going to happen.
Put this on the burner. We're
There would
thinking
be-
big.
There
We're
would
thinking
be
big here.
20. That would be 20 years from now with an insane amount of infrastructure in order to support having a full WrestleMania in Lincoln. You would need to build new hotels.
I don't know if you've heard. Crime is down in Lincoln. More people are moving to Lincoln.
They're going to change their
Look,
name.
Chicago can't even get
Wrestling
a
Town.
WrestleMania.
But the one thing that worked in Vegas, because I studied this, I didn't just say this out of my is the Roomba and T-Mobile are basically next to each other. Now they're separated by 15,
Yes.
but they're close. So
yeah, you have that. You have
Memorial
that.
Stadium.
You have that, but not for Mania. Mania is just more than just having it in a stadium. You need to have so much. They don't have the infrastructure. And you only have, only 4 to 5 cities can host WrestleMania in a decade because New Orleans seems like they get it every other year, which I'm getting. Look, I like New Orleans.
think out of the
What a
box.
great city, all right? Really good arena. Can we stop throwing WrestleManias in there? How many WrestleManias do we need to have in New Orleans? There's way too many. 30, 34, 36. Pretty sure what?
Next, he's going to tell us the Dome Patrol was overrated.
Next year it's going to be in NOLA.
They're so good.
For 2 years it's going to be in NOLA.
Not Aaron.
Put it in Minnesota. Why hasn't Minnesota had has Minnesota had a WrestleMania recently?
No, they were going to have the NCAA wrestling.
Well, they were.
big old-
There was. So they were supposed to have this year's Mania at US Bank Stadium, but instead they're going to save it for
50.
Save it for Lincoln. The real Brian Blade, who is a professional wrestler and promoter, he said the only one indie show would matter, but Mania would be doable in Lincoln. Shout out to the Sandhills event. He's got his MWA Professional Wrestling this Friday, First Avenue Lounge and Social Hall in Lincoln. Doors open at 6:30, shows at 7:30.
Good time.
You could do the Sandhills Event Center for WWE World, he says. Think about
Look
this.
at that.
Talk to your people. You're in the
Yeah.
wrestling world.
I'm not. I want to be. I want to get to know like indie promotions. I want to be a manager. Oh my God. What I would do.
Matt at 1620thezone.com.
What I would do to walk down the aisle with a wrestler and like cut a promo for him, try and put him over. I'd be such a good heel manager.
I tried to do that.
That's
at my
what
wedding.
Travis Scott thought too. Then we saw what happened to Cactus.
Well, you know
Cactus
what?
Jack the other night.
Let me tell you something right now. I wouldn't take my own entrance as a manager. Okay. Paul Heyman doesn't have his own theme music walking down the ramp.
ESPN, by the way, has not publicly commented on Paul Heyman yesterday, but Shannon Sharp has commented on his allegations.
Yeah,
I didn't
saw
need to know that stuff.
I didn't need to see the text messages.
Man's got a wild world.
Well, did you see him on Instagram Live? Is it really that big of a surprise?
That's
Shout
why-
out Michelle.
Hey,
Shout out.
I think got to be better than that. All right. The draft world has got some odds that have shifted here this morning. We'll share that when we come back. Brian Christopherson will join us in the next hour. Again, Matt Rule speaks today as Nebraska is wrapping up the final week. The portal closes on Thursday. Over and under on names that are scholarship guys that are in the portal from Nebraska in the next 2 days.
3.5.
Okay. That's a good number.
3.5.
That's a good place to start on the mixed sports book.
3.5.
I got some mixed sportsbook draft odds for you when we come back on 1620 The Zone. Yeah, Mania could work. All right, welcome to lying season, the NFL draft in Green Bay. If the NFL can put the draft in Green Bay, WWE can put the WrestleMania in Lincoln.
Stop.
Lincoln is larger than Green Bay.
It's
Did you know
not-
that?
Yeah, but Lincoln doesn't have a pro team. Lincoln could not host
Yeah,
a
they
WrestleMania.
do. They are the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
That's not a pro team.
We pay them, don't we?
Not yet. Well,
we pay them.
we pay him now, but
And
not a
then
pro
soon
team
we'll
yet.
trade him. And
Quarterback that's getting paid. There is a Lions season with the NFL draft. There's been a major shift in the Shedeur Sanders odds this morning. The Pittsburgh Steelers are now the favorite at plus 310. The Giants are second. Saints have moved down to fourth. The Saints were favored for weeks and weeks.
So all indications and all kind of reports are saying that the Saints are not going to draft a quarterback in the first round. And actually, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into the Saints, it's kind of been hinted that they don't like Shedeur as a prospect, period, end of story. That they don't even consider him a guy that they would draft.
He's a
in
fascinating
round 2.
guy to me because the range of places that he could go. But here's what I don't like as we get closer to the draft. Y'all need to get Michael Williams out of your mouth. Okay?
Okay.
You need to stop.
Michael Williams?
Yeah. You need to stop.
Why?
Because
you want him?
I want Kansas City to trade up to grab the edge rusher from Georgia.
So, look, if he falls to 24, trade partner could be Minnesota. Who has
those guys
4
all go to
picks in the draft.
Philadelphia?
If he falls, look out. Not a ton of trades this year. I'll tell you this right now.
No, we've had more trades in college football than we have in the NFL draft.
Minnesota at 24, Atlanta at 15. Okay? Those are two teams that don't have a ton of draft picks. If anybody's going to trade out of positions and if anyone's going to go up to get guys in those positions, 15 and 24, I think you're spot on. If you're trading to 24, you're getting a tackle. If you're trading to 15, do you know who you're drafting? Shedeur. I think if you're trading to 15.
Kansas City?
No, not Kansas City. I'm saying teams in general.
What the hell was in my coffee this morning?
No. Teams in general. If teams are trading up, if any team is trading up to 24, it's could get a tackle. If any team is trading up to 15, it's could get Shedeur. Not KC.
I mean,
if that happens, I'm guessing you're taking the day after.
We got Minshew in the offseason. You mean we're going to get rid of him for Shedeur? He played between the tackles at Georgia. He's going to kick out to edge in the NFL. Stop talking about him, people. Okay? I think he's a better prospect than Walker.
I think you'll get a tackle. I think Walter Nolan, I think the two guys that you would want, Walter Nolan
is one the guy
and Mike Kell, I think they'll both be gone. Well, James Pierce Jr., though.
I don't know. You remember when our GM called your GM?
Yeah.
That's what we do on Thursdays of the NFL draft.
I remember.
Brian Christopherson will join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, last hour on a Tuesday of Gary and Matt, and we welcome in from Husker 24/7 to wrap up spring football week, Brian Christopherson. Good morning, BC.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Brian.
Good. Are you going to be involved in the media challenge games, the Survivor Island of media members?
No, I'm going to be out of town, and I'm not skipping town to dodge like catching a punt or anything. It was a planned deal months in advance with family, so I won't be there.
Is this
sounds like a good excuse? I know. Yeah.
Hey, is this a golfing excursion?
Ooh.
Yeah, there's some golf involved. There's also like a Minnesota Wild playoff game, bizarrely, that my brother landed us on Saturday. So it's got a nice variety of things. I've never been to an NHL game. I covered the Stars, as you know, for several years, but I've never been to an NHL game in my life.
Shout out Lincoln Stars, swept the Sioux City Musketeers last night. Hey, you are going to be in the cities on a great weekend. So the Twins, the T-Wolves, and the Wild are all home, and the Vikings draft is going on.
Yes. Well, the Vikings have 4 draft picks, so we have to be patient with that. But yeah, the Wolves are playing. We're going to the Twins game Friday night, which they've moved up to 6:40 because of the traffic. And I assume there's going to be like a huge crowd of like 5,000 to 7,000 fans at that Twins game with us. So
yeah. Well, they're back home. So as we wind down and we're at 105, and there's going to be guys that are going to go into the portal because they got to find a new home. But there is this discussion about the word walk-on. So in the past, we had 85 scholarships, and then the rest are considered walk-ons. Now 105 can be on scholarship. Will we have to find a new name for a walk-on, or like this is, a place where the walk-on program matters? How will it be discussed? Like a guy like Derek Branch, for example, is going to be on the 105, but technically he was a walk-on. Now he gets a scholarship. Jacob Bauer. I mean, we won't have those moments anymore, which will suck because that's one of the cool things about a college football program or any program when they give a walk-on a scholarship and you see how his teammates respond to him, let alone the person that's getting the scholarship. So how will you describe players that previously would have been a walk-on?
Yeah, we'll have to like prod coaches a little bit. Like, would you say he's kind of like an old school walk-on type? Get them to say that, or you're right though. The videos aren't going to be the same. They're going to have to do teams are going to have to do something where it's like, this guy is now part of the upper 53, and people are going to have to get really excited.
You're now on the travel roster.
Yeah, he's on. Yeah, stuff like that. So one of those little charming things that's disappearing. But you know me, I can wax nostalgic about the walk-on program as much as the next guy. This is a state that I think respects it probably. I would say more than anybody else. I mean, we've had like documentaries about walk-ons here that have been on television, and we have written stories for every off season about those guys like Jacob Bauer who make that climb. And the thing that's, cool about Bauer's situation, and also I guess sad at the same time, is like, does 2 years ago, does a Jacob Bauer, does Nebraska take a chance on adding to its roster with someone like that? Probably not. That's a deal that wouldn't have happened that way. There's going to be different avenues for guys to come up, maybe sort of like in how they're doing it in basketball now, where you come up through an FCS program or something like that. But we are going to miss some of what we've known so well. And the thing I loved about the big roster when I was a kid, and this is long gone, was there would be like 135 guys on the team, and there would be these guys from small towns that people would travel just to hope they'd get in the game for like 4 to 5 snaps at the end. Those years have been gone for a while. Nebraska doesn't play as many blowouts and stuff like that anymore, so some of that stuff's already out the door. But it's going to be different.
I look at the defensive line, Brian, and there was a lot of potential and there was a lot of talent there, but we can't ignore the fact that there was a ton of production that has left the team for various reasons. When I look at, on the D line, right, you have the two groups. You have your interior defensive linemen and you have your edge rushers. In your opinion, What out of those two, the interior or the edge, what position are you more confident in heading into the season?
It's a good question. Without having seen it, it's tough to say, but I would say I, I'm upbeat about the edge, what they can get done there. I think of a guy like McGahee with that. I think of the Jacks, and I include them, of course. So Desan McCullough and McGahee are really interesting to me. I think Jordan Ochoa is kind of a wild card that I'm curious about. You could kind of factor like a Williams Unari, who, I mean, he's been the least. You have to give us credit around this state on Williams Unari, wherever you want to factor him in on the D line. We haven't talked a ton about a guy who was the number 6 overall player in the recruiting class a cycle ago. Actually, one spot ahead of Dylan Raiola in the 24/7 Sports rankings, and so they've done a nice job of not letting us get off on that storyline in a big way. But if he steps up and is solid, and those other names I mentioned are what I think they hope they can be, that can look pretty good. I still do wonder about the interior, and I like Riley Van Poppel's mindset about it. It's just like, we're not worrying about what everybody else says. Call us whatever you want, whether it's praise or whether it's doubts.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be part of the conversation in our room. We're just putting our head down, and that's how they have to be. But I do think it's fair to label them a question mark until proven otherwise.
Hey, let's go. So the defensive line with some uncertainty on who would be the frontline guys and then the backups and how the depth chart looks. The offensive line is a little bit like that, but when Cincinnati rolls around, Henry Lutovsky could be starting at one of the tackles. And for anybody that would like a little football porn today while they're sitting at their cubicle, go back and watch when him and Evans pulled on a Ramir Johnson run against Rutgers, and you see Lutovsky, the athleticism, and he's always been mentioned as he is the strongest offensive lineman we have. So he's kind of been yo-yoed in his career, which is now on its 5th year. If he is your starting tackle, what do you expect out of him? Of a guy that's played a lot of football at Nebraska, but isn't one of the guys we always bring up right away?
I expect him to be solid at this point in his career. It has to be. That's a big part of if Nebraska is going to have success or not. There were games in the last year or so where, not every week, but 2 or 3 games where you could have argued he was one of the best linemen that week. So he has had Saturdays where he's been as impressive as anybody. You're right that he's one of those guys that sort of gets talked over a little bit. Justin Evans was that way for a while, too. I think we've kind of gotten past that, obviously, now that he's center. But Evans was a guy who was playing a lot, but the conversation was always about somebody else. That's sort of how it's been with Lutovsky. But, it's an interesting move, as you mentioned, could be the right tackle. There's a few other options there, but he's certainly a guy who I think's been working at it this spring behind the scenes, and they need him to be good. He's like, they can't have a weak link there or something they have to hide. And for a guy who's basically been a starter or near starter for the last 2 years, you expect him to give you good production. So that's what's going to be at stake there.
Isn't it the best case scenario though for Nebraska if let's say, because you have Gunnar Katula who's out this spring and has played, he became a multi game starter last year, and grew. If you have Lutovsky, doesn't that, if Turner Corcoran is healthy, benefit him? Because then we don't yo-yo Turner Corcoran. We say, you know what, you're going to play guard this year.
Well, I'd love to see that. Husker 24/7 has been a big fan of Turner at guard for the last few years. The coaches know a lot more than we do, but I'd like to see him have a spot like, okay, you're settled in it, let's go. And it makes a lot of sense to me at left guard for him. So if you're kind of guessing, I think you look at Pritchett left tackle, Corcoran left guard, Evans, Spindler, Henry Lutovsky. Not bad when you say it out loud, right? I mean, there's a lot of experience there. We always talk about how in the Big Ten, you have to have sort of those 22, 23-year-olds sometimes in the trenches, is why we have some questions about the D-line. But on the O-line, that should be a group that's ready to roll in those October type of games. And we have gotten encouraging feedback, too, about them this spring. They're the one unit that Rule has kind of highlighted multiple times as sort of standing out with pass pro and things like that. And that's with some guys on the sideline who are going to be key components, obviously. So that's encouraging.
What do you think the future for in-state recruiting for Nebraska looks like?
I mean, I still think it's going to be important. It's just going to be one of those deals. I thought Rule laid it out well, where there might have to be a little bit more patience until certain guys get offers. But when they do, know that that's a big time deal. Like this isn't a situation where they can throw out preferred walk-ons, like 10 to 15 of those like they used to, and we used to write them up in the off season, and that's because you had 135 guys on your roster.
Yeah.
So if you go to camp and you earn that offer, and I mean, I like that quote he had. I really did, where it's like, Ohio State does this, other schools do this, top 20 programs. You go to camp and you get that offer, you earn it there. We're going to behave like a top 20 program.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, whether people liked it or not, or however they took it, he was honest about it in a way that probably, I don't know that I've ever heard a head coach give an answer quite as candid about in-state recruiting as that particular answer. I actually thought it was the most interesting part, the way he explained it pretty thoroughly, of a very interesting press conference.
Do you look, Nebraska kids that play Nebraska high school football, it matters to fans when they play for the Huskers, right? There's that connection. But do you think that, because there wasn't as much backlash, and if any, from his comments about, lowering in-state recruiting, at least not, the backlash that maybe you would have thought would have come in the last couple of years. Do you just think that this fan base at this point is just tired of the lack of winning, and that attitude and that just maybe pride that they have has been subsided from the fact that they just want to win now?
Yeah, and I think they understood that comment to the point of, we got to do whatever, we being them over there, to win. Whatever it takes, wherever the guy's from, we have to put a roster together that we think can go toe-to-toe with the top teams in the Big Ten. That's the mission before this staff. We can't get distracted by any of these sidebar conversations that can sometimes take over the off season. Those are obviously going to be out there. We're going to talk about that stuff, but they have to just kind of say, this is our plan. We're going to believe in what we've charted out and go forward with this. And if there's some criticisms on the outside, so be it. But this is what we think is best to get to that top level. And he's right. All the other stuff does go away in the off season more. If let's say Nebraska had a season where they're back in that 10-win total or something like that, or we were talking about the college football playoffs, it's amazing how many sidebar conversations about, like, what do you do with the spring game? Should they go practice over here? All these things kind of just go out the window a little bit because of that. And I think that there's an understanding. So, I mean, for those who are kind of down on, and there's plenty of people who are on, like, the state of college football right now, this also hits at a time where for Nebraska football, it's like, man, it's a huge year. Like, it's so big, to turn that corner while all this stuff is going on, to get people talking about, like, I think about, like, when I was growing up around here on Sundays, after games, there was debates about where Nebraska was ranked. Like, oh, they're 12th, that's too low, and you get into these discussions, and all that stuff has been gone for so long. And we need that, like, that football stuff, that stuff that's about, like, the chase of championships and stuff like that, to be a bigger part of the conversation than all these other things.
Hey, this is in my 30 for 30 voice with the NFL draft on Thursday. And Nebraska will sit out Thursday, but Friday will have a lot of interest. Saturday will have interest. I know that Robinson and Fedoni will be drafted. It'd be nice to add two other guys. But in my 30 for 30 voice, what if I told you 2 of the last 6 years Nebraska has not had a guy drafted? Like, I think we always have this discussion with UBC about how you frame where your football program is when you compare it to the NFL draft. Do you do that?
Yeah, a a lot of times. I think there are certain like outlier years that can pop up even for a really good program where you know, you didn't have as good a draft, but you're still just you're rolling along. But for Nebraska, you know, I've been on the beat for a couple decades now, and you just have seen it slide. There's been a year or two where there's that uptick where it's like, okay, they got 3 or 4 this year, and that's kind of interesting. But it's way different than when I first started on the beat. And I feel like this year, though, has a little bit more of that old school feel. So we talk about turning points. This has to be, you know, one of those years for that. Like, hopefully Ty, you know, it'd be awesome if he got like a second or third round, and then you ended up, some of those guys who were saying, are they going to get picked or are they free agents? If they popped in and you ended up with like 4 or so, I think that's a big deal just to be able to trumpet that. And it's also why I say, no matter what unfortunate thoughts a fan has maybe about a particular player, like he didn't do this in this game or whatever, if the guy's attached to Nebraska in any way, you claim him, you root for him to have success, and you hope that he maintains a strong connection to the program, just like Cam Jurgens is doing right now, because I think that's a very big deal for guys to see Cam, to see Ty over there in the building, wanting to work out there and be a part of it. And Ty, I hope, has a great career just because I really respect the dude, but also I think he would be an amazing ambassador for Husker football, just the way he talks about it and what it's done for him. So there's multiple reasons to root for that guy. But everyone else, even it would be a big deal for this program to have some success here.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's a good point because Nebraska kind of missed the window on recruiting the Sioux impact of a guy who, you know, almost left. They had to keep in the program, and to what he became. Like, to convince guys that are maybe into their 3rd year and they're still fighting it a little bit and they're not getting the snaps that they think, that you could use Ty as an example. Now, you're not saying, hey, stick around here for, 7, 8 years, but a guy that stuck with it through the ups and downs and finally came out on the back end. I think he's the poster child for Matt Rule right now.
Yeah.
Because he was starting to play well in Scott's last year, but he didn't make the jump until they got him playing the right style in the 2 years under Terrence Knighton.
No question. I mean, if you think about even a year ago at this time, with Ty coming back for one more year, we were kind of like, yeah, he's been good, but it wasn't like the level that he played at this last season. So he's definitely a good development story for him, and a guy who showed perseverance. You know, Cam Jurgens can talk to some of those guys about that too. Like, we always knew Cam was ultra talented, and I don't think some of us are stunned that he's kind of been the dude he's been. But, I mean, he got ridiculed and took tough critiques as much as anybody here with the bad snaps and all that stuff, and he fought through it, and now look where he is. So both those guys have good stories to tell. But ideally, they maintain some connection with these other guys. Fedoni was a kid who grew up trick-or-treating with his Husker gear on, like he ended up a Nebraska guy. He didn't transfer somewhere else, and he wears that label. And so you hope a guy like him has success too, and that when it's the starting lineups on Monday Night Football, it says Nebraska, not their high school. That's what you're kind of hoping for these days too.
It's a win-win for Nebraska and Justin Camrad's program over at Lewis Central. BC, enjoy your time away up in the cities, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian Christopherson. It is kind of an odd group of the 4 that could be drafted, because I don't think Nash will get drafted. So you have Robinson, who they love.
Homegrown guy.
Fedoni, who had his moment at the end.
Yeah.
But
has a weird...
I think he'll have a nice NFL career.
I agree.
But, he's not everybody is lovey-dovey.
No. It's a weird... maybe weird isn't the best way to describe it, but it's a different type of relationship between Fedoni and the fans.
Then you have Tommy Hill, who essentially they told, hey, get ready for the NFL draft.
Yeah.
When he got hurt, that did not go well. And then you have a guy who actually transferred, got into the portal, had picked a school, and then got back into the portal and stayed in the NFL draft in Nair.
And then
it's a weird foursome where Ty is at the top, and you're like, I love Ty.
Yeah.
And then the other 3 are like, I like Fedoni, but man, his aunt just crushed Nebraska. And then you saw Fedoni the last 2 games, and you're like,
Yeah.
And then you got 2 guys who Tommy Hill doesn't even show up for his pro day in Lincoln, and Naor is you want to say, hey, that's a Husker, but he really wasn't.
No. And like another thing too,
And
is
he
like,
dropped a ball.
Like you talk about the 4 different relationships, right? Let's just talk about like the 4 different products. Like, okay, Robinson came up with Nebraska, pillar consistency, awesome. Fedoni had his moments. Tommy Hill has this incredible high at Colorado against Colorado, pick 6. You're like, oh my God, this guy's great. This guy's incredible. Then he gets an injury. Then the end of the season happens and they tell him, hey, go prepare for the draft. And then Isaiah Nayer, it's really funny. He has an incredible combine, and it's almost like it kind of fractured the relationship between him and the fans, because the fans are like, we didn't see those numbers. We didn't see those measurables. That didn't translate into out on the field. So then you're second guessing the coaching staff and him as a like. It's so wild how it's 4 different relationships with the fans, 4 different guys on the field, and then 4 different positions. They all play different positions on the field. It's wild.
I don't know. And nobody's having a party in Lincoln, right?
Not
Fedoni will
that
probably
I've
be over in
seen.
Council Bluffs.
No, not that I've been invited to.
Wouldn't it be great if Fedoni was at the same place he announced his commitment to Nebraska? They had a huge celebration. That'd be pretty cool. That'd be full circle. I imagine Ty is probably back in Phoenix.
No,
or where he's living in Arizona now.
Was there ever a time? Maybe I'm thinking of something wrong here, Jimmy. But was there ever a time where
I think of something wrong every day?
Where like day 3 picks went to the draft and they would go up?
No,
there
but it's an
briefly?
idea that's being mentioned day 2 and day 3, because the guys that are in the green room that are first round are not having as much enthusiasm.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting if, obviously you don't want a guy in the green
Mr.
room
Relevant
who could end
celebrating.
up like not getting drafted, right? Like I don't know if Nash Hutmaker would end up getting an invite, but the guys that are going to be for sure 3, 4, 5th.
Would Goodell stick around to give the hug?
No.
I don't know. I wouldn't go to the green room if you don't get the hug.
Mm-hmm.
The
Can't
hug
be
is
somebody else giving you a
the
hug.
The hug is maybe one of the best. The hat and the hug are the 2 best things in the green room.
Little bro hug, bro
Just
handshake.
Goodell hugs him. Can't wait to suspend you. Can't wait to fine you.
Wow.
Hugs the receiver.
Welcome.
Can't wait for your taunting.
Always protect the shield.
Always.
All right. Coming up top of the hour, we'll have the crossover with the Connor Happer Hates NBA show. I guess they do.
His team won the championship a couple years ago.
They went on a rant yesterday.
Hey, Antonio McDyess. That was the last time that the Pistons won a playoff game. Antonio McDyess was playing for the red, white, and blue.
Former
of the
Spurs
Detroit
great.
Pistons.
What a name. Antonio.
You haven't heard of Antonio McDyess?
No, I said I have. I haven't heard that name in forever.
Oh, okay.
It's Scary Matt on 1620 The Zone. Hey, if you're looking for something to do tonight, there is baseball. Creighton plays North Dakota State. KU is in Lincoln. That is a monster game.
Massive.
Jimmy,
I've been
your
there.
Kansas Jayhawks are having a hell of a year.
Baseball school.
They just swept Kansas State. That's a monster. That's a fun midweek matchup down in Lincoln tonight between Kansas and Nebraska.
Maybe I can get Kellyanne to adopt him. She have another team.
No, she's loyal to LSU. This
I know,
is her
I
Baton
know.
Rouge
Yeah.
weekend.
I was
So
looking at bracketology. Kansas is a 2 seed projected in one of the regions.
In baseball? Wow.
yes, they're having a great year. They just swept Kansas State down in Lawrence.
Oh, yes, I know that.
Creighton, by the way, is it D1 baseball? Is the one on the first four or the next four out?
Okay.
But Omaha Creighton softball tonight over at Connie Clausen at 6. Mike Hurd, man, he is a gem. They're 32-9. They're 12-3 in the Summit. They're in
Wow.
first place. It's important to win the regular season, the Summit, because then you host the next year's championships. And they have got they've got the best softball facility by far in
It's
that league.
really nice.
And have to go to play. At least they put turf in Brookings, but they got to go play on a goat track because South Dakota State's won the regular season.
No goats.
Omaha softball, Matty Groff, who is having a great year in the circle. They may not be on the level of the NCAA team last year, but they're not very far behind. They're 32-9. So
That's
if you're
pretty good.
going, it's the final weird schedule. Nobody will come and play Omaha. It's their final home game tonight.
Oh, wow.
Over at Connie Clausen at 6. There's also news out of Omaha Athletics. There has been a coach that has been removed. This just announced. Omaha is looking for a new women's basketball coach. Carrie Banks has been relieved of her duties after 5 years. 51-89 was her record. And so a roster that I believe only has 2 players on it.
You at least need 3 more.
Yeah.
At
They
least.
had quite a few that went into the portal at the end of the season. So it's been a rough 5 years for Carrie. She is great in March in Sioux Falls and has had some success there, twice getting to the championship game, but they are making a change after 5 years, 51-89. A national search will begin immediately to find the 10th head coach in program history. I don't know much more about Omaha women's basketball. I did not watch them play this year. So if you're looking at me to give, I just know that their roster.
You're saying there is a job available.
They had quite a turnover in the offseason.
See what they do. National search. I mean, go find somebody.
And they also have to hire somebody. I mean, in a city that has enough girls basketball players that are Summit League
Good players.
talent,
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the Atlanta Hawks of the NBA.
What do
The
you mean by
Atlanta
that?
Hawks are the most insignificant professional franchise going.
Except in 1988. For
Okay.
one day in 1988, they were
Dominique
great.
Wilkins. They used to be on TBS.
And they still played in a half-empty arena.
Speaking of firings, you know who fired their head coach yesterday and it didn't even have a peep?
Atlanta.
The Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah.
Quinn Snyder got the ziggy.
If Trae Young wasn't playing there,
yeah.
you wouldn't pay attention to the Atlanta Hawks. If Kyle Korver, thank God, is part of their front office, you wouldn't pay attention to the Atlanta Hawks.
If it weren't for Damari Carroll and Josh Smith and Jeff Teague. Remember when Jeff
Seriously,
Teague
Yeah.
was an all-star?
I think they are the most
No. there's
insignificant professional franchise going.
No. I think the Hornets are up there.
What? Grandmama?
I think
Zoe?
I'll give you one. I mean, it's easy in hockey. Does
Wardell
anyone really
Curry
give
the
a damn
first?
about the Ottawa Senators? In
They're
America.
in the Stanley Cup playoffs
I
right
know.
now.
So was the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks were in the play, and
Hey,
they were on national
people-
TV too.
People here care about Canada.
No,
They're going to become the 51st state.
I don't think anybody gives a damn about Ottawa.
I'm
Charlotte.
trying to think.
Let me
well,
tell you something right now.
Is
If
Ottawa
Zion,
within the 500-mile radius for Nebraska to recruit? Think about it.
they got good tackles.
Ottawa wants the Rough Riders.
New Orleans, if they didn't have Zion, you could say the same thing. I don't know. Atlanta's in a bigger city. I don't know if Atlanta's a terribly run franchise, and they've been peddling in ever since
They don't
Budenholzer was
support
fired. They've
their
been peddling in no man's land.
teams.
Other than that one year they went to the Eastern Conference
They
Finals,
fired
but they
their
are
head
not
coach yesterday.
the
And inside the NBA and all the other, nobody
Across the
mentioned it.
street.
Nobody mentioned
Hockey Dad tweets in.
like
this
Bob
is a good
Weiss
one.
got
Buffalo
fired again.
Sabres, they're insignificant. Nobody gives a damn about the Sabres.
And they have a really good young player.
I know.
But now it's 14 years since they've been in the postseason.
Dallas Stars' first Stanley Cup game.
This is a
against
good
Buffalo
list.
Sabres.
Atlanta's on this list. That's the one I'll pick.
Atlanta. I would take Ottawa. I would take
Buffalo
Ottawa.
is
Buffalo
one.
is good too.
Remember when Brett Hull was in the crease?
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
was too.
Are we?
Dominic Hasek,
Hey,
man.
How about this? The Miami Marlins. I mean,
I
talk
mean,
about
that's,
an insignificantly bad, like, and
That one hurts
especially
my heart.
too
They
because
won
of
2
how-
World Series.
Exactly, because of how damn good they used to be.
My guy is getting his guy called up, so he's very excited. And they had Max Meyer last night. Was dealing.
No, I would say that Miami's on that list. I would say
They are.
The
As-
LA Clippers used to be on that
LA
list.
Clip, but that's what happens when
Donald
you get
T
a
was
really
running
good owner,
things.
who invests in a lot of money and who wants you to be different, who doesn't want you to be little brother anymore.
You're
You can
losing straight back in the
emerge out of
90s.
that.
There was always
Here's
the
thing.
Clippers.
All right, I'm gonna. Sacramento isn't there, but it is a team that comes to mind. They're not there, but it's a team that comes to mind.
Poorly
It's-
run.
Especially in the
True.
2010s, like early 2000s, absolutely not. This last run of the last 4 years
Ugh.
has been pretty decent for them. But when their best player
What in the name
was
of Hito
Tyreek
Turkoglu?
Evans, and it was like DeMarcus Cousins for like 5 years, was like, oh, Boogie's pretty good, and that was it. That was a pretty rough time in that franchise. So I think the Kings would be there too.
I disagree.
But they fired Mike Brown and at least got some run.
yeah. Oh,
Do you
bad
even, do you
run,
even
but
know
they
who
got
the
run.
head coach of the Atlanta Hawks is?
No,
I already said it.
it was Quinn Snyder. Now they just fired him, so I don't know.
Mhm.
Wasn't it was like a. By the way, the NBA.
Oh, they're your favorite
Let's
list
talk
of
about
Hawks
this real quick.
coaches.
What's with the whole recycling coaches? Like, it just feel like over the last 10 years, it just hasn't worked out. These guys get fired, and then they immediately get. You can go down the list of like guys like Budenholzer. He gets rehired, didn't work
NBA
out.
champion.
Vogel got rehired, didn't work out. Monty Williams got rehired, didn't
NBA
work
champion.
out. Dwayne Casey got rehired, didn't work out.
Pat Riley got fired from the Lakers, hired by the Knicks a few years later. What were they thinking?
Well, that did some of them do work out, but I'm saying as of late, not in the 90s, in the 2000s and 2020 or 2010s.
Del Harris
20s,
hasn't
it has
gotten
not
any
worked
more
out
run.
rehiring coaches in the NBA. Doc Rivers, how many? I mean,
Well,
he's
it's
been on two
because-
different teams now.
I like this topic because it's Earth Day and you have to recycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is it actually Earth Day?
it is
Yes.
all day.
Wow.
Yeah. Shout out Earth.
I'm trying to think of more insignificant franchises. You know what? Funny enough, the Chicago White Sox have been so bad that they've actually made themselves significant. And people are talking
they
about
still-
how bad they are.
But they at least have a pulse because of their owner is
Yeah.
known.
People still remember Ron Karkovice.
You think the
Greg
I've never
Luzinski?
forgotten. Yeah, never forgotten the Bull.
Mariners?
No.
No.
Because they've gone through a run of like some like Felix Hernandez.
Yeah.
To
Ichiro.
Our generation will
Julio
always think of
Rodriguez,
Griffey.
Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
to Ichiro.
Yeah. Is there anyone else in baseball? Probably not. I don't know if the Twins are there. Because I still care about the Twins.
No,
Many
no.
do.
insignificant? No.
The Twins.
Not
yeah.
insignificant.
No.
No, that's it. I think it's the Sabres, the Senators, the Charlotte Hornets, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Pelicans. And until recent success, the Florida Panthers. For a very long time, the Florida
The
Panthers
96
did not,
Eastern Conference champion
did not
Panthers?
matter.
Now, here's the thing about, I don't know if you follow movie reviews. Like if El Kent comes on the radio station in the afternoons
Mhm.
and he says, that movie sucks, I wouldn't go see it. But that's a movie you wanted to go see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I used to argue
Do
with
you
Dad
still
about
go?
this. Hell yes, I go.
You know, a sport which it's not insignificant, but the gap between the third most popular sport and the fourth most popular sport are growing in this country. And NHL regular season ratings are down 12%. I made the joke yesterday. It seems like more people tweet about the playoffs than actually watch it.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
last night was an absolute banger
Banger.
of the 4 games that were going on, from Connor McJesus to Colorado messing with your mind if Gabe was going to play or not last night when he came out for
Yeah.
the pregame skate. But it was an Ovechkin who, if I'm designing a hockey player, everything that Ovechkin does, I'm putting in that hockey player. It was weird to see a Euro hitting because in the playoffs, because the way the salary structure is, a lot of the times Euros will take it off.
Yeah.
But Ovi was delivering hits last night. He crushed Caulfield. He got the game-winning goal. I still don't understand how Montreal let
How do you
the number one scorer of all time set up shop right in front of the net all by himself.
Jordan rules.
There was
just hit him. You can hit him. Just hit him.
There was nobody there. But the one thing about like hockey, everybody tells you that nobody's watching. And it's and even if El Kent says that movie is awful, don't go see Sinners.
Yeah.
Sinners you won't like. You know what? I'm going to see Sinners because I was already going to. So you can't tell me that hockey, nobody watches hockey, and I'm going to watch hockey. I'm just asking people because the hockey was really, really good, and it is the postseason that just watch the hockey. I don't care if you don't watch in the regular season.
What series would you tell them to watch? What series would you tell them to tune into?
That's like picking your favorite child. I mean, I like Minnesota Vegas, but look at last night. The Kings are up 4-1 on Edmonton.
Yeah.
And Connor McJesus, who could have scored 10 goals last night, comes back and Edmonton ties the game, and then LA gets the game-winning goal in the last minute. Look at this is the beauty of hockey, is you can play so well for 45 minutes, and the next thing you know, you're in overtime.
When the Worms scored that third goal to make it 5-3 with 12 minutes left in the game, you could hear the LA crowd kind of silence a little bit, and you can feel Edmonton being like, "Oh, we're gonna have a shot to tie this game," which they did. Shot at LA, comes back. Last minute goal with, I think, minute 20 left. They end up winning the game. I'll tell you this right now. I hope this is the first time ever I'm going to say this in my life. Wow. I hope the St. Louis Blues win their next game.
Ooh. Oh, win their next game. They're down 2-0.
I hope they win their next game. I cannot stand the Blues, but I hope they win their next game because that series has been so physical, so fast, and incredibly fun to watch. And you got the Winnipeg Jets who, we're being honest, we're talking about insignificant franchises. You know, that's one
President's Trophy.
That's just right up by 29.
I'm just saying, over the last
Canadian highway
decade and a half of like people forget. You know, I mean, people are like, oh, are the Thrashers still in the NHL? You know, I'm kind of joking there. That's tongue in cheek, but
they didn't even know they were there.
They have some
pro hockey would work in Atlanta if they had better ownership.
Well, it barely can work in the NBA.
Thus,
why wouldn't work?
Name your favorite Atlanta Thrasher.
Ilya Kovalchuk.
He was going to save that franchise.
Well, do you know that
you like your Russians?
I do like Russian hockey players. I think they're awesome.
No, I didn't say hockey players. You like your Russians.
Just in general?
Mm-hmm.
No, I like my Russian hockey players.
Okay.
Let's just make that very clear. I am a big Russian hockey player fan. Because it's funny enough, I talked to people, I knew people in the Blackhawks organization. Part of the reason they traded Artemi Panarin was because
he was Russian.
He was Russian, and they didn't think he would play hard in the playoffs.
That's true. I didn't know
that is a legitimate reason why
I
they
did not
traded
know
him.
that until I was in pro hockey, and they said, "You wait, because the money has been secured. The money is different in the postseason. You watch the Euros. They just want to go home because they've already gotten their paycheck."
Bowman traded him because he was like, he's not physical enough to play in the playoffs. And then they had a playoff run 2 years ago where he looked absolutely phenomenal and made everybody eat that. But anyway, no, Ilya Kovalchuk is the leading point getter all time for the Winnipeg Jets. He never donned a Winnipeg Jets uniform once in his career.
That does roll off your tongue.
Well,
I tell you, I say the European name so much better.
Oh, just
well, I mean, that's how it works. Tommy Frazier is one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great point.
Big Ten legendary coach Tom Osborne.
Look at all the Heisman trophies and national championships the Big Ten has.
Yeah, that was
Leinart,
so weird. I still can't get over that Big Ten network graphic where
Carson Palmer
posted the Pac-12 national championships and Heisman Trophy winners, but not Nebraska's who came from the Big 12.
Matt says the Brewers in baseball.
No.
They've been good.
They've been really good for a while.
Good.
And they've had some good players. Braun,
shout out Harvey's
Fielder.
Wallbangers.
They're Corbin Burns was awesome for him. Lorenzo Cain was electric for him.
Fernando Vina ran over by Albert
Christian
Bell.
Yelich. I'm forgetting Christian Yelich.
Robin Yount, Paul Molitor.
Well, I'm talking
Ben
about
Ogilvy,
I'm talking
Cecil
about
Cooper, Ted Simmons, Raleigh Fingers.
I'm talking about
Pete Vukovich.
Recently.
You slip that one in there. All right, we'll come back. We'll put a wrap on the show. And if you want to be shamed, we're going to do some shaming.
Oh, no.
There's some shaming out there. And also, I have a question of something I'd like to purchase.
Besides the TSA thing?
Yeah. I saw something yesterday that I wonder if it's available in Nebraska.
What is...
It was not 420 yesterday, so I know where you're going. Today is Earth Day.
Okay. It is. Isn't
Make
that
sure
funny?
you recycle.
For Earth Day is right
Hey,
after 420.
All those plastic bottles. The best recycled coach at Nebraska. Doc?
Probably.
Gary and Matt. 1620 The Zone. All right, got a little intel in the discussion yesterday about the playoff shirts at Oklahoma City. We have a listener who took his son to the game the other day, drove down to Oklahoma City. They're big Thunder fans.
Okay.
Grizzlies should have put them in the game. They
He
would have tried
said
harder.
what they do during some of the timeouts, if you are not wearing a shirt, they will put you on the video board and they shame you into putting on the shirt.
I'm not a fan.
Peer pressure.
Not a fan.
how I
If you
tried
don't
drugs.
want to wear the shirt,
Got to wear the shirt.
you shouldn't have to wear the shirt.
You've got to wear the ribbon.
You don't have to wear the shirt.
You have to wear the ribbon.
What if
you're
I
in
don't
the
want to
age
wear the
walk,
ribbon, Jerry?
Wear the
Jerry.
You've got to wear the ribbon.
What if I don't wear it? Why do I got to wear the ribbon? That was my terrible Jerry Seinfeld. If you don't, look, if you went and you are comfortable in what you are wearing and you are wearing a similar color to the team,
Sell your tickets.
whether it be white or blue,
One for all and all for one. That's the only way that Oklahoma City gets through.
Mhm.
Well, thank God that my basketball team is
That
run
and
by a
Brahms.
cheapskate because they'll never give free T-shirts out like that. They give us towels. They don't do. They don't do
I
the free
like
T-shirts.
towels.
I'm a big-
Wear
I-
the shirt.
I have a collection. That's actually one of the things that I have a very good collection of is playoff rally towels. I have 6 of them.
I have one framed.
I should get one frame too.
I have the 87 Homer Hankey from
Wow.
the Twins World Series at the Metrodome. I have it framed.
The puppy, you remember her?
I
She has
have-
a collection of
Mhm.
Spurs playoff towels that got put together into a blanket by her great grandma.
Oh, that's incredible.
Mhm.
I have the 2010 Game 5 Stanley Cup Finals, Philadelphia versus Chicago, and Game 5 World Series, 2016 Cleveland versus the Cubs.
You got a
I
friend.
have every team that I root for except for the Bears. Don't have a Bears towel because we don't.
Because the Bears are insignificant.
Well, because we don't play.
Tie it back together.
You don't
Playoff
play,
games.
You don't play meaningful football.
We got towels for me.
What are the words you're searching for? You don't play in the NFL. You have a popular quarterback, though. It was the Cubs game the other day.
In a bad way.
all right,
we are insignificant.
That's good. Lean into that. And then
Caleb's
I'll
coming.
enjoy your success because I think you'll be good.
Coming. Caleb's coming.
No, Ben Johnson is coming.
Caleb's
It
coming.
ain't Caleb coming. It's
Caleb's
Ben
coming.
Johnson.
They're coming together.
Question about the shoe world. So the story is out there after Curry cooked the other night. I know that Curry is peak Tiger Woods. When you don't think something's possible, he'll make it possible. And everybody talks about he hit the corner 3 over green that was nearly impossible.
You're like, we're done
You
here.
know another thing that gets me a little bit fully hussed when I watch Curry play?
He's dribbling.
Oh, I know
No,
where
no.
you're going.
When he gets to the rim, and it's not as like, oh my God, like the way he shoots threes, but his arc on layups nowadays is unbelievable. But
Great
Curry
point.
scores 31. The Golden State won a game in which they only scored 95, which for the most part, when Golden State scores 95 or less, they're going to lose.
It's like
But
the old days.
But they played really good defense, and Houston didn't have anybody that can score. But Curry on Sunday night was wearing the Sakura
Yes.
signature shoe. It is Keisei Tominaga's signature shoe.
You saved the
Curry,
best
who
for
has his
last.
own shoe, is wearing this shoe. Now, can you get that shoe here in
I
Nebraska?
hope, because you know what? And this isn't like this is my school and this is the team that I root for. It is a cool
Mhm.
looking
Mhm.
shoe.
I like it.
Like it is a nice, like the colors, the accents, the mixture of the patterns,
Mhm.
like also like the design of the shoe itself is actually.
Yeah.
I have a pair of Curry's. One of the best walking shoes I have.
Yep.
Period. End of story. Like the
Ooh.
ankle support that you get
Mhm.
and like the comfortability of the sole. I would
Take
buy.
that,
I
Skechers.
immediately. I would buy those.
How cool. So so Keisei Tominaga's shoe is under the Curry brand.
Yeah.
But in that game where everybody's going to be watching, he wears that shoe, and then what happens? Everybody's like, I need to get that shoe.
Hmm.
Can you get that shoe in Nebraska?
I
We
hope
need to
so.
find that out.
How many Foot Lockers are here?
A
Gotta
few.
go to a
There's
Foot
also
Locker.
Dick's. They're the goat. That's at least what they tell
Or
me.
Shields.
Shields, yeah.
I mean, I grew up with Dick's, but I do love Shields.
Rest in peace, Buster Brown.
Rest in
But
peace.
they're great looking shoes.
They
and
are
so
so
cool
cool.
for Curry. Like he has Tominaga as under his umbrella that he wears those during a game.
I wonder how many.
Because they're what? They're not fully pink.
No,
They're a nice shade. though.
They're like
a great shade.
They're a combination of like pink and red.
Yeah.
Mm.
Now,
What does that
Ice
make?
cream.
I'm not in the
Like a
shoe game.
strawberry vanilla.
I'm not in the shoe game here, but does he have a lot of athletes that are under his brand that? Because I mean, I understand the story with Keisei Tominaga and him loving Curry and him wearing 30 and
Japanese
everything.
Steph Curry.
Japanese Steph Curry.
1890 needs to
nickname,
hit up
everything
Steph.
like
I
that.
wish somebody would have mentioned that while he was playing here.
It got mentioned plenty.
Did it?
But it got a lot.
Did Bardo mention it?
It got a lot of run. Got plenty of run, in my opinion.
If Keisei only knew how
But
good
how
he
many
could be.
athletes are under the Curry brand?
I have no idea. But we know that Tominaga is. I'm telling you, if that's out on the table, that front table where
It's
they
got you written
they
all
move
I
over
would
it.
love
they
it.
move the Hey Dudes and the Cloud Nines
Huh.
away, and they put the Tominagas there at Dick's today.
Mhm.
Those things sell
Mhm.
out.
Does LeBron not have a brand that people are umbrellaing under? How did Curry get that before LeBron?
Different company.
Yeah, Under Armour. They
Mhm.
probably get.
They protect this house.
but they gave it to Kobe when Kobe was still playing.
It's because
All
it
right,
was Kobe.
big NBA fan Connor Happer and Josh Odson come in the studio next.
They're going to break down every NBA Finals of the 1980s.
They're pretty. There were some bangers there.
Hey, Kawhi is back. He had
For
39
now.
last night.
Just
And also
waiting
the
for that
stupid
other
narrative
ligament.
that Joker doesn't care. He cares.
Oh, he cared a lot yesterday.
cares. He
Some
cares.
really
He had
bad
an
calls.
uncharacteristic rough night. He missed 4 free throws, turned the ball over 7 times. That series has been fun.
7
It's gonna be
games. I
great.
was talking to their play-by-play guy the other day.
Talk to you tomorrow at 6.